Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday, the 12th of April. And what a week it has been. I hope you're enjoying the new theme. As Julian Assange rots in jail. The one person who should be rotting in jail is Theresa May, the wicked witch of Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we all doing? Are you there? Anybody? Don't seem to be getting any messages through. Let me get another screen up. It may not work this way. Okie dokie. Bear with me, guys. I am just transferring onto a new screen. We shall be commencing in a very short moment. Okay. Right. Lovely. Why I bought this absolutely dreadful tablet. Bear with me, peeps. Ah, I can see people now. Okay. I was getting a bit worried. I thought, what's going on? There we go. Sorry, peeps. Sorry. I am using some new equipment today. You know me and new equipment don't go together. Rayon is in the house. Baba Yaga's in the house. Tivatap. Scarlet Fox. Hello. Walter. Raindrop. The main man himself. So, I I found a way of how to get around playing videos for you guys, and it's this. We're going to use this. It's a little arm contraption, and we're going to see how it goes. Today is the test day. Tim Asuna, RCW. We can see your message to the top. What is going on here? Right, anyone heard about Avi Yemeni getting deported? Yes, terrible. So he went to interview somebody in America, and he was detained, I think in California, and he was sent back, exported. It's not really an export. He was detained and sent back. Awful, absolutely awful. But what was worse than that? What was worse than that? Was actually, I'll wait until the right appropriate moment to put that on. Was Julian Assange being dragged away? I mean, shame on the Ecuadorian wimp of a president on overturning the good work of the previous president. And we need to also mention that Facebook took down the Facebook page of the previous president the moment Julian Assange was dragged away as a hostage. So, I mean, that was some ugly stuff. It was a dark, dark day for democracy. It was a dark, dark day for all of us who love freedom and democracy. Awful. But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Where shall we start with the news? So much to go through. We're going to get guests on in a few moments. Well, I mean, the top of the list is India and Pakistan, but I don't want to start off just bashing people, but I have to go through the news, right? Shivait Shignath, hello. RCW, indeed. Indeed, indeed. The Pakistan has announced they have launched the female elite commando force, and the females will play a essential part in the war on terror, apparently. In the meantime, Hindu girls are being abducted in Pakistan and they disappear. Let me repeat that for you. Hindu girls, not women, girls, are continuously being abducted in Pakistan. So we had Narendra Modi comment on that. Even the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has taken notice of Hindu girls being abducted. France 24, which is an English-French channel, showed a Pakistani Frenchman standing against the concept of making forced conversions to Islam a legal process. In other words, you cannot force somebody to become Muslim. That was the proposed law, and the mosque in Pakistan said no, that's a terrible idea. Oh, sorry, did I just say something about news about Pakistan? Oh, let me put that on. I mean, there's so many articles of the girls being abducted, Hindu girls in Pakistan, they just disappear. The parents try to find them, they can't find them. Is the chat working? Can somebody type something in the chat? Because it seems to be stuck for me. I'm not sure why. Anybody? It's definitely stuck. Ah, see you live. See, like, if I had an internet award to give to the person who causes the most controversy on the Google Hangouts YouTube scene, it would be you that receives it. I mean, you are literally a lioness. In fact, you are the Muslim female Alex Jones of the internet. That's the impact you're having. And I've noticed a lot of comments as well, stipulating, "Oh, see you live." You know, she goes. She's a mod on Manny Sinder's channel, and she gets on with Raj and blah 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 and this that and the other, as if we've got some kind of contractual friendship going on. We haven't. We just respect each other because we feel that we tell the truth. In fact, see alive when the New Zealand thing happened, which was sad, actually said a few sentences against me and Raj. Did we start crying? Like, oh my God, Sia says something against? Of course not. In fact, I took it on board. I thought maybe there is something to this. But anyway, it's been very entertaining. It is a fantastic compliment. Somebody said to me, "Manny, you are the British Indian version of Alex Jones." That would make my week. Anyway, back to the news. Pakistani Hindus complain of forced conversion of teenage girls. I mean, I can show you some videos here, guys, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to. There's a lot of it. Even AP News. ADID Sind, which is a news channel, states there are reports of abduction. Yes. Yes, I am. Bear with me. I think we're going to be having Steve joining in. I haven't invited anyone yet. Bear with me, peeps. Sorry, very antisocial. I hate people when they're talking to you or you're in a meeting and they get the phone out. So guests are going to start coming on at 8 o'clock. Oh dear. Right. Oh, loads on. Nope, not going to do any of that. There's been a national alert in America. Pedophiles dressed as clowns preying on children. Rolls-Royce, in an attempt, yes, Rolls-Royce, the luxury car maker, in an attempt to become, what's the word? To fulfill diversity goals, have built I think they've called it an immigrant squatting toilet. So in Asia and parts of Africa, I'm not sure about South America, there's a different type of toilet. So in Europe, in the West, we actually sit down. They call it the throne. So in in more of the developing countries, they have a different type of toilet. Apparently, it's very good for having a bowel movement, but there's no seat. You just squat, literally. And Rolls-Royce, like all corporations are bending over to all government tyranny, have installed what they're calling a squatting toilet. Is that right? I mean, they haven't got anybody to use it, but they want to have the boxes ticked. No, don't want to do that. What's this? European Commission finds German car makers VW, BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche and Audi. Well, Porsche and Audi are owned by Volkswagen. That's why they're all rubbish now. But Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes have been caught by the European Commission in illegally colluding to restrict the development of technology to clean emissions from passenger cars. But you're going to get taxed for it. You're getting taxed for it. Most of probably people don't even drive into London. But those of us who do, we have to pay a green tax, whatever it's called. What's it called in London? Somebody help me out. Anyway, so the German car makers, German make their number one export, their speciality is making cars. They make the best cars, hence why they're luxury cars. Obviously, Rolls-Royce is a super luxury car, probably the best car on the planet, owned by BMW anyway. But my point is, they colluded and said, we are not going to allow clean emissions. Okay, so we're being taxed, road taxes going up. This is not just in the UK, this is throughout Europe. What's going to happen? Is our tax going to come down? Are they going to allow the technology to come up? Makes you think. I do have a property of the week being sold by Williams and Williams Estate Group. Would you guys? Do you guys want to have a look at that? Maybe. Okay, let's have a go at that. Or do you want to see some belly dancing? What's your favourite? Who would type 1 for belly dancing and type 2 for property of the week? Which one would you like? All the lads are typing in. Okay, let's do belly dancing. I think I don't know where this is from actually. Maybe somebody. Can you see it? That's enough of that. That's enough of that. Right, let's get going. No, don't want to do that. So RT did an article. Oh, I don't want to do that. So did you guys hear about the lady who went to Dubai and called her husband's new wife a horse, and she's been put in prison? I mean, doesn't that just make you want to go to Dubai and all these countries? Like, if you call somebody a name, you end up in prison. But apparently, she's going to be released now, which is good. BBC did an article saying, why is Libya so lawless? Perhaps BBC just asked the government, why did you take down Gaddafi and bomb the country to smithereens? Maybe that's got something to do with it. Taylor West donated £86,000 to the LGBT group. Okay, let's watch this. So this is a new documentary coming out. Where did it go? By Tommy Robinson. The Rape of Britain.
Cases involving the conviction of 56 men. Those 56 men, 3 of them were white British men. 53 were Asian names. 50 of the 53 were Muslim names. The vast majority were British Pakistani. this was a process being repeated. It was happening in Birmingham, it was happening in Bradford, it was happening in Manchester, it was happening in Burnley. How had this pattern developed? How had it developed, apparently completely unseen by the authorities? How come every single aspect of the British establishment treated every single case that had cropped up as an isolated one-off case with no pattern whatsoever to any of the other cases that were so similar?
Shut up, blah blah. Always whinging.
And I want to make sure everyone in this country hears. Do you know what they're doing? They're putting conditions on all these court cases, so none of you hear what happens. The real detail of the vicious and sadistic things that's happening to these children. None of you hear.
Everything that we're being told, everything that
Rush Markshall's in the house.
is not the truth.
When they're allowed to report it, one day's news. One day's news.
The things that I was hearing were incredible. The men could do this to young girls.
And that we're going to let the world know the details. We're going to find the people who let it happen.
For too long in this country, we, media, the establishment, society, the chattering classes, the liberal elite, whatever term you want to use, have ignored the issue of grooming gangs of young, vulnerable teenage girls who have been victimized, drugged, and raped and abused. I believe that Telford is the beginning of the most explosive documentary that I think we'll ever see. When it comes to kids, it doesn't get much deeper. I watched the life, the soul, drain out of that 17-year-old girl. What I mean by that is, no one else in the room was looking at her apart from me. And I could see in her eyes went red. Tears started going down her face. Her mouth started jittering. But you could tell that this girl was thinking about what these men had done to her. They took her to a derelict house in the middle of nowhere, with no lights, no windows. The only thing that was in that house was a mattress on the floor. They kept her in there for hours.
Biggest rape scandal in our country's history.
There you go. How do you want to open this type of link? Okay. Okie dokie. Now, majority of the articles are very negative towards the Muslim community. I'm kind of don't want this show or this hour just to be bashing Muslims, but I'm kind of struggling because the beginning of the week we had articles like one by New York Times: ISIS enshrines a theology of rape. ISIS bride accidentally reveals 5-year-old girl, the murder of a 5-year-old girl to undercover driver. We have Vatican cardinal warns the West will disappear because of mass migration. I want to just get to the latest stuff, to be honest. Study claims anti-Muslim sentiment may be behind a white flight trends in Glasgow. The people in Glasgow are actually leaving because they don't want to be living next door to Muslims. The genuine article. Mimsy Vids did a very good video. Maybe we could watch that actually while we have time before we move on, as people are tuning in. It's a good one. Where's it gone? Damn it. Mimsy Vids, if you're watching, I don't like your intro. That's just me.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Mimsy Bits. I am Marwa, aka Mimsy. Today's video is inspired by an interview that I watched on This Morning on ITV. It was just intriguing because it was basically a convert Muslim woman who had their child go to ISIS and become radicalized, obviously, beforehand. And it was kind of her thoughts on it. And I thought that was a really interesting interview. And I think actually that interview pinpoints, I think, the many problems that Muslims have within their Muslim community. So I'll just show you a quick clip and then I'll explain basically what I mean.
When were you aware that your son had changed? We're talking there about, you know, he worked very hard at school, you were a very close family, he was a good boy, you say.
He was.
And what changed?
I would say it was probably about a year and a half period just before he went in 2015. It was kind of, there were slight changes. At that time, when he decided to change mosque, he had become more rigid in himself and more kind of sort of, you know, more following the rules, and it was very difficult within family life. And when he changed that to a more kind of stricter mosque, we did have a dialogue about it, and we did talk about that and how I wasn't very keen about it.
When you say stricter, are you saying that you're
So we get the idea.
Muslims, or you're not, you don't
Now, on the other side of that is obviously those extreme. Oh, the video's been taken down. Brilliant. All right, we need to move on. Now, I found a video where an aeroplane crashes into the sea. It's not a commercial airliner, it's like a small passenger plane. It crashes into the sea. Do you guys want to see what it would be like being on that aeroplane? I mean, for me, it's one of my worst nightmares, being on a plane and it crashing. Mind you, I'd prefer it that it crashes into, oh, Ewan Van Dam. Look, who you calling boring, mate? Haven't you got more crimes to commit? How many times do I have to block you? I mean, do you not get the message that the likes of myself, we don't want people like you on the channel? What are you doing? I mean, you're like a sniffing dog. You're like a bad smell that you can't get rid of. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing back here? Who invited you? You have to create a new account every time to come back. That is very, very sad. It's very, very sad. Look, if you type another message, I'll block you again. But because you haven't got any friends, you're a racist, mate. Brilliant. Right. Where's your proof? Where's your proof? Donut. Oh, you haven't got any proof. Shame. Just block him. RCWC, just block him. What a sad, lonely human being keeps creating new accounts so he can come back and get involved. Oh, do you want to play? Got no one to play with. Got no one to play with. Billy No Mates. Let's put the light on. Billy No Mates wants to play. Where's he gone? You got anything exciting to say? No, I didn't think so. Right. What time is it? Okay, guess not coming on yet. No. So Chinese scientists have placed human DNA into the brain of an ape, and environmentalists are saying that we could have, what's that movie called? Planet of the Apes in reality. Big up Mujahideen. They've all been wiped out, mate. Do you not understand how it works? All been wiped out. That's what happens to evil. You might want to go and talk to Adnan Rashid. I've heard allegedly he might be involved in those circles. I'm not sure. I cannot say for sure. I have my opinion, but there's videos up there. Scientists develop a clairvoyant machine capable of predicting the future. We spoke, but no, doesn't no. As many as 8 million children are kidnapped and trafficked into the sex industry. 800,000 of them in the United States. 8 million globally. Can you believe that? It's amazing. Not amazing as in good, amazing as in terrible. Another white flight. Diversity extremes push Londoners out of London. I'm going to be honest, I'm very close to leaving London. I will be very, very surprised if I am still in London this time next year. I'll be very surprised. Not because of I don't want to be living near or anything like that. Just that London itself has become a shithole. I mean, London is not just the capital of England or the main city in the UK. London is one of the capital cities in the world, and it's become a shithole. Who are you talking to, Taz Devil? London is a... Oh, you're agreeing with me? Okay. Barack Obama is to be investigated for treason for allegedly spying on Trump. I must admit, I'm really disgusted at President Trump. I mean, how could he force Britain? Not that Britain would have said no, because they're corrupt. The establishment is just as corrupt. Why is he pushing for Julian Assange to be sent over to America? He should give him a full pardon. And now the Swedish government, you know, the Swedish government have dropped the charges against Julian Assange. Now they're saying we're going to revive the charges. I mean, this is terrible. Even people who are not politically minded are watching the things unravel and think, what the hell are we living in? Where do you go to live? Where will you go to live? Sorry, I beg your pardon. I've dimmed my screen so you guys could see the screen better. So let me redo it. I would probably... It'll be on the south coast, probably. Literally on the south coast. Yeah. We saw that. Big up to Pamela Anderson. Not for what you're thinking. Pamela Anderson actually tweeted and slammed toxic coward Trump. You are a selfish and cruel human being. That's what she said. In fact, I think she deserves her picture to be shown and the article to be shown to my audience. There you go. A college in America is promoting men cuddling, which basically means men come together and cuddle each other and make sure they're okay and nothing's been hurt and no one's feelings have been trampled on. Maybe you, Van Damme, could go over and give him a cuddle. Oh, look, somebody pointed out the unfairness of stoning LGBT gay people over in whatever country it was. And guess what they're called? Islamophobe. She needs to wear a yellow star. Oops, no. Okay. So those of us who drive, there's going to be new software installed on your phone forcibly to confirm whether you are typing and driving, which I think is good because people are not stopping. Stormzy cancelled a gig over weapon search. Now, do we have... Stop sharing. Okay. if I was head of the police, let me get my collars up. So if I was the head of the police and I wanted to catch as many knife carrying people, drug carrying people, I don't know, whatever things that these criminals carry, what would you do? Would you send officers to the poshest, nicest area, or would you send them in those areas where in the past the arrests of people have revealed they were carrying weapons and drugs? What would you do? You would send them in those areas, right? So if you want to stop crime before it happens, prevention, what would you go? I wouldn't say that you have to stop and search people for no reason. However, if somebody is being a nuisance, then you have a right to have a word with them. And while you stop them, there's an argument for, take them to one side. Then what's in your pockets? Because you are acting a bit deranged. So Stormzy cancelled a gig over weapons search. But it didn't say what was the look. All I'm saying is there has to be a reason why the police stop you. They can't just stop you. That's my point. Okay, let's go back. So councils, the local councils of the United Kingdom, are actually actively funding unregistered schools. The paedophile establishment are actively giving money to unregistered schools. Just think about that for a second. You have a child and they'll send social services around and they do all types of things, right? Making sure that you are jumping through loops, and then any sign of you wanting to be a parent your own way, they'll rip the child out of your arms. But then you have schools with all types of things going on, and they're happy for them to carry on. Okay. So my friend Steve sent me a wonderful message. His cousin Gurjit Sahota has written this book. Can you guys see it? It's available on Amazon. Big well done to Gurjit Sahota. Well done, mate. It's a good effort. So his book is titled Guru Nanak Sahib's Life and Teachings. Obviously, the author's name is Gurjit Sahota. Now, he went one better. Now, you probably guys can't see this. Can I open this up? So here's the letter. Let me read the letter out. It's from Kensington Palace. I won't read it all, but it's basically saying, well done, thanks for sending us the book, and so on and so forth. So I said to Steve I would mention that. So Gurjit Sahota, if you are watching this, well done. So we have the vaccination debate. There's been more of a cover-up. I think we've been down the vaccination conversations before. What have we got down here? Medical police cuts off research funding from blah, blah. Right. If you're still drinking fluoridated water, then probably that's why you're thick. So Yuvan Van Dam, stop drinking tap water and start drinking water that doesn't have any fluoride in it. It will help you, I'll promise. So Robert Greene, who was an activist against institutional child rape, paedophilia, in other words, the establishment, he sadly had been ill for a number of days. He has now passed away. But I'm going to play a video. I'm going to play this video. It's David Icke video. Bear with me. You can have a look at my ugly mug while I find the video. Ba, ba, ba. How long have we got before the guests start coming in? Oh, we've only got a few minutes. Bear with me. Oh. I've got to find a certain minute in the video, so it's 6 minutes 32.
It's hard to contemplate the emotional trauma that comes from seeing your children taken from you by state agents, often psychopathic thugs, if the truth be told, while they're screaming for their mum and their dad. And those kids are then put into foster homes and permanently adopted, while their parents are not allowed to see them. And a lot of this comes from, well, lots of reasons, but to keep on this particular subject, it comes from making claims that your child or children have been sexually abused by a paedophile father or through some satanic paedophile ring. And what happens is the doors slam to stop any of it coming out. And so the person who is trying to expose it becomes the villain and takes the consequences, while those actually doing it get away scot-free. I've been investigating this sort of stuff for 30 years. It happens all over the world. And only those who really care about what is right, what is just, what is fair, will stay the course. Because there's many, many encouragements not to. There's abuse, there's ridicule, there's efforts to silence you. All these things go on. And a lot of people come into this arena and the wider arena of conspiracy research, and the kitchen gets too hot pretty damn quickly, and they're off.
Indeed, they are. So,
Robert Greene.
Big up to Tommy Robinson for being strong. Big up to Alex Jones. Big up to Julian Assange. Big up to all the heroes, including Paul Joseph Watson, even Raj Speaker's Corner. And as we've seen, it's not easy being in the firing line, because they'll take anything away from you, not just your freedom. They can take away your children. They can take away a house. We are living in dark times, unfortunately. That is the truth of it. So let's not play. Right, let me go back on here. I haven't got long left before peeps start coming in. We've done that. Oh, this was an interesting article. The former Pope, you know, the pedo. The former Pope pedo says sexual revolution led to the abuse crisis in church. Just think about that. So the Pope is saying that the sexual revolution in the West was the cause of popes raping and abusing children because people lost morality. Has he been talking to Adnan Rashid? Because Adnan Rashid came onto my channel and said something very similar, stating that it was the parents' fault as much as the perpetrators for grooming gangs in that particular case. And in fact, whenever you talk to lunatics such as Banksy, what's wrong with my light? Oh, I see. Yeah, well, what can you do? I do have a light with remote, but I just haven't set it up. Anyway, so when you speak to lunatics, even like that Mr. Amaraz that came here and he was sent away with his tail between his legs, they all have the same rhetoric, that it's not the fault of the perpetrators. Somehow other people are to blame as well. Anyone but themselves. So this Pope can go you know what himself. And then the latest news that I posted onto the thread was that UK Parliament are very likely to consider a new Brexit referendum. That was always the case. That was always the plan. Remember George Soros and the treasonous, who's a chap from Virgin? I always forget his name. Both added millions and millions of pounds into a fund to stop Brexit. Exactly, Tivitat. What a BS from the Catholic Vaticans. I'm ex-Catholic. No excuses for exactly. And can I just say big up to the British white community that used to go to church and then stop, because I saw with my own eyes that during the 80s and 90s, when all the scandals were hitting of paedophilic rape by churches, I saw with my own eyes how slowly but surely the British people became wise to what was going on in churches and the whole extent of their existence. And that's why people stopped going, in my opinion. Obviously, the more intelligence you have, then you climb above religion. And the thing we have in the Western world that we do, we have developed minds. But the problem is, as we've become developed and we've become technological, we have to remember that technologically advanced civilizations don't last very long. Now, obviously, we have a wave of Muslim migrants coming in that want to bring in their way of living, their life. And empires fall. The West is falling. It's not falling because the Western people are allowing it to fall. It's falling because the Western leaders are corrupt. They've sold the country. They've sold the people. And to what? Nothing. The new rage coming in isn't fantastically better. It's not going to take the Western people into a whole new level of enlightenment. We're going backwards. And it's all because the Western leaders have sold us out. And there's an old strategy that the kings used to use in ancient times. When they would take over lands and murder the men, they would take the women and children and they would take them to conquered lands and make the different populations live together, because they knew that different populations living together means that the entire population becomes weaker, because people are so busy fighting amongst themselves that they haven't got time to look at those who are suppressing them and take them on. That's exactly what's happening. Muslims are not the enemy. Muslims are being used to bring down the West. I know with the whole rhetoric that everybody wants most people to see Muslims as the enemy. They're not the enemy. Yes, they do not, their outlook, their religion and their culture does not fit in the West. Everybody knows that. They know that. That's why they feel that they have to become dominant. Those people who are purposely orchestrating it. So the British people said, we don't want war. So the establishment lied and BS'd, sent the planes, sent the soldiers, bombed the effing hell out of these countries, and made complete narcissists, destroyed families, killed families, and then brought the descendants of those families to come and live amongst us, the very same people who didn't want the war in the first place, and say, why aren't you getting on? You're racist, you're Islamophobe, you're this and you're that. And you're thinking, whoa, we left this behind in the dark ages. We don't need to go back. Rant over, I'm sorry. The Hague. So somebody brought a case against the US in The Hague, highest law, the court that you go to for crimes against humanity or war crimes. And somebody wanted to take the US to court for crimes in Afghanistan. And because the US threatened the Hague, Hague refused to see the case. So, in a nutshell, that's the news. But I just want to show one more video. Big up to Vivian Westwood. Now, Vivian, I know you don't watch this show and you shouldn't. It's not your type of thing. It's far too trendy. Better than some of the outrageous clothes that you've designed. However, I always had a very, very bad opinion about you. In fact, whenever a newspaper article was presented to me, and even the FT actually wrote articles about your fashion designs, which is why they did that is beyond me, but they did. I used to laugh in hysterics at what you were wearing. However, I am now going to apologize, and I'm going to play this video because what you said today was fantastic. So bear with, I think I need to turn the light off.
I saw Julian on Tuesday. I was allowed into the Ecuadorian embassy, and I was very happy because the people in the embassy were so polite and respectful. And I had read in the paper that Ecuador would not kick him out. And when I got inside to see Julian, he said this is lies because Ecuador is very weak because they're under such strong pressure from America that they're just waiting to find an excuse. And then he said, and they will arrest me either tomorrow or definitely within 2 weeks. That's what he said to me on Tuesday. And what I want to say is that this is about human rights, free speech, and misrule of law by government. Because what's at stake here, the issue is that Chelsea Manning and Julian released American war crimes. Chelsea, the whistleblower, Julian, the publisher. And this is what this is about. And they've had this court waiting for them ever since.
And how did you feel when you heard what happened this morning?
Well, it's incredibly violent. And I blame England anyway. England have kept him in that embassy trapped under total false pretenses, illegal. They've been keeping him there illegally for years, through manipulating. They're just doing what they want.
There you have it. Vivian Westwood actually had something decent to say. Well done, Vivian. Done. Right, I'm just sending some things out. If anybody from the chat wants to come in, you can do. You're gonna have to get my attention though. Let me read what's been going on. Tim Westwood, no. Vivian, oh, you. Steve has joined. He has graced the channel after a long while. Good evening, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. How's your week been?
Well, I say I'm very good. I'm not really, because I've just found out my YouTube channel has been suspended.
Oh dear! Did they cite a reason?
I hadn't even received an email or any notification about it whatsoever. I've literally, I was just going into watch you live streaming, and I tried to put something in the chat, and it told me I couldn't, and then I looked into it, and the bastards have suspended me. So, and I've just checked emails. I've had no message from them whatsoever.
Wow! And you haven't posted anything for a while, Steve.
I did. I think I did a little bit of a last. I think last time I posted anything was I think I did a little bit of a live stream on the 29th of March on Brexit Day.
That's right, yeah. But you haven't
And
done anything since then.
That was just a bit of live streaming around Parliament Square. So yes, I wonder whether I'll find out why.
Well, if they haven't sent you an email already, then that's it. Let me just have a quick look. Steve, Speaker's Corner.
My son's just tried to have a look, and I think he said he couldn't find me. So.
Yeah, you're not there, mate.
So I think that must have happened in the last few hours, because I'm sure I looked at something this morning and it was okay.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that, mate. Because you had some very good content on there.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it says it's suspended, so I assume that means it's temporary. So I don't know whether you lose anything when you finally come back in terms of
I don't
content.
know. I've never been suspended. I've had a strike which prevented me live streaming, and that was on the other channel. Hence why I opened this Manny Sinder live channel. But I've never been suspended. I think only the likes of the Tommy Robinsons and the other big speakers such as yourself.
Even Tommy Robinson isn't suspended, so I must have done worse than him in their eyes.
But then, yeah, I mean, if you're suspended, then also there has to be a way of you to what's the right word? Respond or claim back your channel, right? So suspending normally means that something's being looked into.
Well, yeah, suspension I would assume is temporary, not permanent. So yes, I think Bob's probably right. I'm sure she'll have her evil hands in it.
It did come to mind. I didn't want to say. Have you have you guys have you heard from her? I mean, has she owned up to it? Have you checked on her channel?
No, I try not to listen to the mad woman's voice any more than I have to. If she tracks me down in public.
She's been very active on the political scene recently, hasn't she?
Well, on the money begging scene. I don't know about anything else.
Oh, really? Is that what she does? She asks for donations, does she?
Oh, all the time, at the beginning and the end, at least, of every single thing that I think she's ever done. It's beg, 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 give me money, money, money.
Oh wow. Okay.
She is a whiny witch indeed, Bob.
I was. I mean, I told you this. I told you this when I saw you last at the Brexit thing as well. I mean, really, how she handled it and how she approached you wasn't fair. I think if you guys could have had some dialogue, then that would have been the best way.
But you know, the funny thing is, though, every single person, I think, without exception, that I've spoken to, whether online or in public, face to face, have all completely agreed that she's a complete and utter nutter. Even people that are quite well known that don't say anything publicly against her or publicly side with her have said to me, I've lost count of a number of people that have said to me she's an absolute liability and an embarrassment. But none of them, or the vast majority of them, won't say anything to her face or say anything public. But they're all howling about her behind her back, which I think is somewhat two-faced. If you don't think much of her, then at least say it publicly. Don't just say it behind her back.
Maybe they're scared of her.
Well, probably, but even on the last the last time I was watching the Yellow Vests, A few of them came up to me afterwards, after she was having her rant, the last little live stream she was doing, and they all just looked like shaking their heads in disbelief at her, and saying, you know, what an utter embarrassment she is. And to be honest, that coming from some of the yellow vests, it's quite something.
Just bear with me 1 second, Steve. Rashma Akhtar, you're using some very derogatory language against Sabsia. I don't know why you guys have fallen out, but of course, have a debate and have an argument in the chat. But you can't be using, you know, language like that. Like I said, I don't know what's happened or anything like that. If you want to have a go at each other, fine, but please don't use that type of language. Otherwise, it prompts me to take action.
Rashma, that's very unlike you. You're usually a very civil, decent sort of person.
Absolutely, she is. Yeah.
Don't let them get you down. Don't let the bastards get you down.
So Steve, tell us your opinion with Julian Assange. Tell us your opinion on the latest Brexit news. You know, tell us your viewpoint, because obviously your opinion counts in these type of matters to the audience.
Oh, but I don't think you're going to like it when it comes to Mr. Assange.
Go for it.
I have to say, when I left work yesterday and I saw the front page of last night's Evening Standard, I cheered. I thought, fantastic. At last, the little prick's going to have to stand up and face justice. I don't have much time for Julian Assange. He's an egotist. He's arrogant. He's a complete narcissist, as I think they've said in the court today or yesterday. No one is beyond the law. If he thinks he's so damn innocent, then stand by his word and face justice. Don't cower away in a foreign embassy for years on end, simply avoiding justice. He hasn't been held against his will. He's been there completely voluntarily. Because he wanted to avoid justice on various fronts, whether it was the Swedish sex assault allegations or whether it was the allegations of what he did or what he oversaw in America. You know, if he's such a damn good man and hero, then he should stand up and be counted and not hide away in a foreign embassy. I don't have much time for him at all. I think what he did with WikiLeaks, okay, it exposed some wrongdoing, but it also put a lot of people's lives in danger. He didn't give a damn when he was revealing those tranches of information. He didn't redact any information. He could have redacted information to make it safer and still made his point, but he didn't. He didn't redact anything, and he jeopardized not only people's lives, but he jeopardized investigations. He jeopardized you know, the state apparatus and people that are out in the field doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing and uncovering evil wrongdoers. And he just threw caution to the wind and just threw it all out into the public domain without even worrying about any of the negative impact that what he did. So I'm damn glad that he's now facing justice, and just listen to what the courts are saying to him. And you know, completely ridiculing his nonsense. So no, I don't have a lot of time for him, and
So 1 minute, Steve.
Positively.
1 minute, Steve. So just clarify. I kind of do agree with you. I had kind of buried that viewpoint deep inside my skull, and hoping that nobody of you know, of your intelligence will come along and bring this up. But you have now. But just clarify for everybody, when you say put people in danger, what do you mean? What did he do that ended up putting people in the firing line?
Well, so all of the intelligence that he got hold of, he just put it completely unredacted, you know, not hiding anyone's identity, you know, great tranches of intelligence and data he just threw into the public domain without as much as a you know, any care or consideration. Now, you know, you can whistleblow, you can expose wrongdoing, but you don't put people's lives in jeopardy. So, you know, there were agents out in the field at the time who he exposed. He exposed their identity. Therefore, he put lives at great danger, but he also put the intelligence gathering, at danger. So, it was a complete cavalier, arrogant sort of attitude, because, he was doing good and he was the knight in shining armor, exposing all this wrongdoing. Well, do it in a in the right way, that you're not actually creating more danger and more problems by what you're doing, however wrong you think the wrongdoing is that you're exposing.
Talking of possible people who could be members of the Secret Service, we have been joined by Witness, who hasn't been on the channel for a very long time. Witness, hello, how are you, and where have you been?
Good evening, Manny. Good evening, Steve.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Where have you been? Where have you been, Witness? You haven't been on the show for a long time.
I've just been down the rabbit hole of hangouts, talking about other political issues with other groups of people that you probably don't know. So that's where I've been. Just came to say hi, and I found it interesting you're talking about Mr. Assange. Of course, we know he got arrested and got dragged out of the embassy. Frankly, I'm amazed he was able to stay there for 7 years. Can't believe he was able to achieve that. And I can see Steve's not a big fan of Julian Assange. Okay, but do you think that he did anything good, Steve, or you think his whole existence and WikiLeaks was just 100% bad? You don't think any?
No, I wouldn't say it's 100% bad. He did expose some things that are bad stuff that shouldn't have been going on. And maybe the world might be a better place now because he did expose those things. Yes, no, he's everything he has done is not all bad, is not all negative. But I just think the way he's gone about it could have been done in a much more thoughtful way than he did it. And I also think, the fact that the embassy have thrown him out was basically because he couldn't even respect the rules and the regulations of his host. He couldn't even respect his host. He was so ignorant that he couldn't follow the rules that they set, and the things that he was doing whilst they were hosting him. He couldn't even respect his hosts. So what the hell did he expect if he can't even behave in the way that his hosts expect him to behave? So yeah, I'm surprised they put up with him for quite such a long time. But I think they finally had enough, which is why they called in the Met and got the Met in ready to arrest him as they were throwing him out.
Well, it was the previous president that actually allowed him to stay for the term that he did stay. As soon as the new chap came along, it was already written, and the rumours were out there that the new leader was not happy with the Julian Assange situation, and he would work with the West in order to get him out.
Yes, I always suspected that. I always suspected it was probably government change which led to him being expelled from the embassy, because he was there 7 years. So I always thought once that president or leader or that government changes, he's at the mercy of the next government. They might not like him. And I think that's what happened, as you pointed out. So I think that's the only reason, really. Something behind the scenes between the power structure didn't like him, didn't favor him, got him out. So I guess it's a case of watch this space and see what happens to him. He might actually get off. Who knows? Because I'm still trying to figure out, what are they trying to arrest him on? Is it the rape case, the alleged rape case, or is it something new, or is it a combination of different things? I don't know. It's like, we'll see how it goes. But
I think the initial arrest was because he broke bail, and surely we'd all agree we cannot have people just sticking two fingers up at the law and breaking bail conditions, because if that's acceptable, then what anarchy, what chaos do we end up in? So that was the initial reason he was he was arrested and up in court for breaching his bail conditions of 12.
But that bail condition was for a case that was, in his opinion and in many people's opinion, charges brought against him just in order to get him, locked up. They weren't genuine. It wasn't a genuine charge, i.e., the sexual assault
Well,
in Sweden.
who are we to say that? How do you know that?
Well, for a start, the Swedish government then did drop the case, and and so that bail shouldn't even be relevant because the case had been dropped because of lack of evidence.
But the breaching of bail conditions, I think, is a what you call it in itself. It's a crime in itself.
Yes, it is a crime within itself. But what are you supposed to do if you're faced with tyranny?
Oh, come on! Run to Russia.
Would you not, Steve?
Run to Russia, just like Edward Snowden did. Russia, that home of free speech and tolerance and freedom.
Well, they're making strides in some areas. They're not all bad in Russia.
No.
They are.
In what area is Russia taking strides for improvement?
Well, look. In Britain or in the EU, they launched the LBGT rainbow flag as some official emblem. At the same time, in Russia, they launched the family flag and said it's good to have a family and so on and so forth. Now
implemented a ridiculous law that comes as near as damn it to making supporting LGBT rights illegal.
Well, but that's the negative side of it. So obviously, there's negative sides of There's negative sides of promoting the LBGT community as well. So there's always going to be positives and negatives. But the other things, I mean, Putin actually promotes family life. He actually states that following the Christian way of life. A Christian way of basis of how to run your life, i.e., love your neighbor and all that stuff. I mean, that has to be seen as a positive, right?
Bullshit. He's a totalitarian, evil dictator who has no care for his Russian people. You want to look at the healthcare in Russia today. Do you know people are basically left to rot at home and die of cancer because there is no such thing as palliative care in Russia? The healthcare is an absolute outrage in Russia. That the way the Russian citizens are treated by that government stinks, and we don't know the half of it here in the West. So I don't care whether he campaigns for family values. He's an evil, totalitarian dictator. He doesn't allow freedom of speech. He doesn't allow freedom to gather. He doesn't allow freedom of thought. He doesn't allow freedom of press. The democracy
and our government does. And our government does.
Relative to Russia, yes. Relative to Russia, yes.
I think we're glossing over problems by our own establishment, and
we have lots of problems in Britain, and there are lots of things in Britain we could do a lot better. But my friend, compare it with Russia, and we are leaps and bounds ahead of them on our healthcare, on our democracy, on our freedoms, on our free press. Yeah, and I'm the first of any to criticize all those things in Britain, but it is relative. And relative to Britain, our democracy today is hugely superior than the so-called democracy in Russia, which is a complete and utter joke. Putin has to approve what parties can stand. Putin has to approve who can stand in the presidential elections. There are opposition parties that are not allowed to stand. There are any opposing media stations or media channels are not allowed on the networks. They're not given the press, the freedom. So all the problems we have in our country about the press and about our democracy, and we have lots of problems, are nothing compared with the problems of Russia. And I have personal experience of the problems in Russia today, and it is appalling. The lack of freedom, the lack of anything that is truly democratic, that is truly free speech. We worry about what Facebook does to Tommy Robinson. Well, what Putin did in Russia to Odnoklassniki, which is the Facebook equivalent in Russia, Putin just snapped it up and bought it and took it over. And now it's one of their main sources of intelligence, directly owned by the government. So I again repeat, our problems are nothing compared with the problems in Russia.
But he's loved by the Russian people.
And why do you think that is? Because he controls the media, he controls the narrative, hugely more than Theresa May controls the narrative in Britain.
No, I don't believe that. I think
Why
he's
do you
very
not believe
patriotic because he's helped develop Russia since he's been in power. He's put nationality and pride back into.
Yes, but if you're dying at home because there is no healthcare to look after you, what do you think that matters? What do you think that counts for?
Yeah, but
if you're gay and you're being attacked in Red Square or in the streets, you know, what do you think Putin's patriotism counts for? Nothing.
Right,
If
right,
you're an
but they have
opposing
had-
voice, if you're an opposing voice in the media and you're killed or you're beaten up and your flats raided and ransacked, what good is his patriotism to you? Absolutely nothing.
But they were a communist country until a few years ago, so we have to give them a certain amount of time. They've had the US and the EU impose sanctions on them.
But they are going backwards. They are going backwards and getting worse. The healthcare system is getting worse. The lack of freedoms is getting worse. The FSB has significantly more funding and people working for it now than the KGB ever had in Soviet times. Today is a lot worse, and it's getting worse and worse and worse.
I don't know.
And they're spreading their evil fingers over the world. Look at RT. Look at the Russian investment.
Look at the BBC.
They're not spreading. They're not spreading their propaganda around the world like RT does.
Are you mad? I mean, BBC is the propaganda machine for the British establishment.
Then why does every government throughout my life always moan about the BBC? That they're biased towards the other side.
Well, it's still the establishment, isn't it?
Well, but it's not the establishment. But anyway, yeah, it's a problem, but it's nowhere near the problem of Putin's control over Russia.
Witness, did you want to come in at any point and share your opinion? Are you pro-Russia?
I wanted to ask you, can I share something on the screen, share something for you in regards to this?
Of course.
I hope you'll be able to see it. I'll try and see if I can screen share it. It's in regards to Mother Russia and Mr. Putin. Can you see this now on my screen?
Yes.
Now, I got this off The Guardian. It's Russian presidential election 2018. It's a piece of footage. It came out on Monday, the 19th of March, 2018. It says, Russian election footage appears to show vote rigging video. Various clips appear to show ballot box rigging during the presidential election. People can be seen on CCTV stuffing multiple voting slips into ballot boxes throughout Russia. Vladimir Putin won that election 70 by 75%. I'll just play it and see if you guys can see it at all. It's quite interesting. You do see people like stuffing stuff in there. It's just a 1-minute video. So you can see here the you can see just people stuffing stuff into the ballot boxes. See, they seem to be just putting stuff in there, pumping stuff into those ballot boxes. There's no shame.
Exactly, there is no shame to the extent that they.
I mean, look at this lady. Look at her.
Their elections.
She's off just pushing stuff in.
And we know, again, we have problems in this country. We know Tower Hamlets is probably the worst example of election problems. Yeah. However, that sort of problem is widespread across Russia. True. And it's state controlled because they're doing it in support of the state. She won't be stuffing in ballot papers for the opposition. She'll be stuffing in ballot papers for real Russia, for Putin's party.
Definitely. So I just wanted to show that because it was quite obviously rigged. What was going on there?
Can I just say, gentlemen, that I have seen the same type of videos both in Britain during Brexit and elections. We've seen in Britain alone that voting stations, polling stations were closed before their time when people were still queuing outside. So we've had that type of election fraud here, and I've seen the same type of thing happen in America. So I think we're just looking at.
I think you need to be careful with your words. We haven't seen the same type of things. We've seen some problems. So I know what you were saying when there were queues outside some ballot stations. They closed on time, but unfortunately the queue was so long, there were people at the end of the queue that couldn't get in time. So it wasn't that stations were closing earlier. But as I said, we're not perfect and we have had problems, but you really cannot compare the issues that go on in our elections with the widespread electoral fraud that goes on in Russia. And you know, they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn to any international rule. They only pretend this game of election, of democracy. They pretend that they're a democratic society for one reason only, and so that's so they can get to the table of international organizations and international networks, because we wouldn't allow them to the table. We wouldn't allow them on the Security Council or in the United Nations if they didn't at least pretend that they're democratic, but they're not, and they have no intention of being truly democratic at all, because that's the way Putin rules. He rules with an iron grip on that nation, and he has no intention of allowing Alexei Navalny or any of the opposition, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, all these people who would put themselves forward for election and actually could potentially have some chance. He'll never let them anywhere near, because he doesn't want to let anyone on the ballot paper that's ever going to come near beating him. Because he's a coward, as all totalitarians are. He's a coward, which is why he can't allow true, free systems of democracy and elections.
I don't know, dude. I think you'd be very biased.
Well, but I've been to the country. My wife's from that country. I've been there regularly. I read, you know, I read on all sides, obviously in English language, but you know, the Russian side and opposing. So you know, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, look up him. He's a very intelligent guy. He's said and written an awful lot about the current state of Russia. He's not some mad loon. He's a very very intelligent, savvy guy, and very patriotic. He's not anti-Russian whatsoever. He's as patriotic as the next Russian person. But read what he's got to see. You know, look at what Alexei Navalny has had to say about Putin and about the current Russian party. You know, there are Russian voices trying to be heard to point out what an evil totalitarian dictator they've got in Russia at the moment.
So if we just look at my screen very quickly, so obviously voter fraud in Russia, and then we come down, we see voter fraud to sway elections video there. We've got voter fraud in Kansas. You know, we go further down, US midterms, which was a famous case. What else we got? You know, there was a Brexit one. I don't know if the video is going to come.
To be honest, the list of YouTube videos is not proof, and I can't actually see videos of people stuffing in ballot papers in Britain or even in America.
But then you've accepted that as evidence from witness for Russia.
I mean, it does exist in Britain. We did have that very interesting situation. It was the elections when Nigel Farage was trying to run as a MP in I've forgotten the name of the town. When he was trying to run as an MP, and it transpired the Tories won, but the Tories got into trouble because they broke the law by using more money or something.
Yes.
So that could be an example of that goes into your favor, Manny, as proof of voter corruption. Plus, nobody's actually been arrested or imprisoned in the Tory party since that was done. Even though it's been mentioned in the press that the Tories did break the law by the amount of money they used. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I don't have the same knowledge as Steve, evidently, when it comes to these things, and because obviously he has links to the country. But from from somebody who kind of tries to stay very neutral in these type of things, I just think that Russia is not very good at hiding the draconian measures of the establishment, whereas the West, i.e. the UK, the EU, and the US, they're very good at hiding and cloaking their draconian ways of doing things.
Would you consider what's happened with Brexit corruption? It's been lengthened till the 31st of October.
Of course, we're no longer a democracy. Officially, we're no longer a democracy.
Parliament, members of Parliament, members of the House of Commons have let us down. They've let democracy down significantly.
Well,
is anyone here going to vote for Nigel Farage's Brexit party?
Well, as a paid-up member of UKIP, I guess I have to say no. I would not.
But this is another big problem the country has now, because what's happened now is we have three fractions. We have For Britain, we have UKIP, and now we have Nigel Farage's new party, the Brexit Party. I mean, the votes are going to be split.
And we have a fourth. We have the old SDP.
Yeah, but does anyone take them seriously?
Well, they're getting more and more coverage and publicity and members, apparently. Well, I think they're putting up quite a lot of candidates at the various elections coming up.
Hi, Rindra.
Hi, guys. Actually, it was about Russia. I kind of agreed with Manny in the sense that there has been a lot of anti-Russian propaganda, especially in the U.S. I mean, the way I studied it was that Russia, in 1991, it was a complete shit show. The economy had tanked, the life expectancy had reduced, the people were dying at the age of 50. And then they saw Putin as coming in, and they were losing the war in Chechnya. And they saw Putin coming in as like a strongman to fix things up. I do agree with some parts of what Steve says, in the sense that there is a lot of corruption. But in a country that has never experienced democracy, it's been very a short time. I think it's been 20, not even 20 years. 20, 25, 30 years where the Russians have, some type of democratic system. And I guess the average Russian, because I visited Russia, they don't want to have what happened in 2005 and 2008 when the economy was tanking. And then with the Democrats, like if you have, in Russia, if you have like, let's say other political parties, they just go and exploit the resources, and then the average individual, bears the brunt. I don't know. What do you think, Steve? You probably have more experience.
I mean, of course, you are right. It is still relatively early days for them as a fledgling democratic country. So of course they're not going to be at the same stage that other countries that have had solid, stable democratic systems for centuries. So of course that's correct. But I suppose what I'm worried about is that it just seems to be getting worse. Seems to be getting worse over the last 5-10 years. The level of totalitarianism, the level of tightening down on free speech, tightening down on free and fair and open elections seems to be getting worse. And the investment in the FSB and how much money they do, and things, the likes of Salisbury and Novichok, and invading Georgia, invading Ukraine, and invading Crimea, on a lot of fronts, things seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, in that sense, I think the reason they did this was because NATO was coming onto its borders. So we actually, in America, we actually made a treaty with them saying that we're not going to expand further from the border. But when we started expanding into their, near their areas, then they started, freaking out. And this was all, during the early 2000s, when the whole Chechnya war was happening. And it was really looking like it was going to look really bad, in the sense that the Russians were thinking that they're actually going to lose Chechnya. And so basically what Putin, when he came in, he was dealing with a basically collapsed system. So they're like, okay, let's strengthen the military, because at that time the military was losing complete morale. and then they're like, okay, let's strengthen this, let's finish Chechnya's problem off, and then defend the local borders, where I guess in their point of view NATO was encroaching, and they're like, okay, we have to do a preeminent intervention so they don't get to go ahead.
But let's face it, NATO has troops in the Baltic states because the Baltic states are scared witless. The Baltic states are really scared of what Russia's going to do. So therefore, they want NATO there to give them that sense of security. America or Poland or whoever or Britain aren't sending troops into Estonia against Estonia's will because we want to piss off Russia. We're there because the Baltic states are very scared and want us there to protect them and to give them security and to protect them from Russian invasions, as Russia has invaded other states that are not Russian, Georgia, Ukraine, and others.
Yeah, Ossetia was part of. With the Baltics, I don't think Russia's going to invade the Baltic states. I think they might interfere in one of them, which has a large Russian population. I forgot. Is that Lithuania or Estonia? I forgot which one.
It's Estonia, I think. Is
Estonia, yeah. So that has a huge Russian. And then the Estonians started forcing the Russians to give up the language. They said, okay, you can't speak Russian, you have to speak Estonian. So I guess they're kind of getting antsy, and I guess the role that Putin looks at is that he's trying to defend Russians or a large Russian population wherever they might be.
But what do states do? What do empires do when they want to take over land? They make sure they send lots of people there to live there. And this is the ruse that Russia follows all the time. It says, oh, well, first of all, it invades a state, then it denies that it's invading a state. Then when it becomes absolutely bleeding obvious and they can't put the denials out anymore, they finally say, oh, okay, it is our troops, but we're only there to protect Russian people that are living there. That's what they've done time after time in a number of different states.
Steve, our establishment does the same.
I'm sorry, where are British people living in another national state that we've then invaded? Where have we done that? We're not going to invade the Costa del Sol, are we? And say, oh, well, there's a lot of British ethnic people there, so we're going to invade Spain.
I think, Steve, you're talking about what's happened after World War II when they settled a lot of Russians into the Eastern Bloc states. But I think the French did the same thing, where they co-opted large parts of Germany, and they took I think the coal. There's a part of Germany that was a coal and steel producer, which then the French.
You're talking about the region called the Ruhr. R-U-H-R.
Yeah, the Ruhr. So they basically did. Yeah, so I think the Russians are like, if you guys can do it, then why not me?
But my point was, Steve, that places like the Falklands. You said sending troops in. I mean, we could be talking about our establishment, using our resources to do.
I'm not sure
that
if you can compare the Falklands. The Falklands is a tiny barren island that's got a handful of British people that live on it.
Yeah, but my point is that we have in this country, we have history of doing things like that, and we have continued presence in countries.
Again, I don't think we've ever taken the labels off of our soldiers, sent them into another land, denied that there are soldiers until they've got the power and the control of the land, and then we suddenly say, oh, okay, they are British soldiers after all, and then we change the border. We changed the border barrier and say, right, this bit of that country is now ours. It's Russian state because we've decided, or we've organised an alleged referendum in the space of 3 days.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Crimea.
They stick two fingers up to national law all the time.
But I thought Crimea was actually given away by Khrushchev to Ukraine, because before that it was part of Russia, and then when Khrushchev came over, he gave that over to.
Well, yeah, because if you go back long enough, borders change all the time, don't they, between different empires and between different countries, etc. But the fact of the matter was that Crimea was part of Ukraine. It was Ukrainian territory, whatever its previous history. You can't say, 100 years ago or 50 years ago it was ours, so we're just going to take it upon ourselves to send our troops in and take it back. because that's not how you change international borders, is it?
Yeah, I do agree that the way they did it was not correct. But it's just that in the U.S. there's this common theme of attacking Russia, which, attacking Russia as some type of, master boogeyman. And in reality, the reason Trump won was that people didn't like Hillary Clinton. It wasn't because of Russia. And I've met a lot of Republicans and left-wing Democrats who are kind of sick and tired of this narrative that, that Russia was the sole, one responsible. I guess in the U.S. at least, it's been a way of politicians to deflect criticism from their own shortcomings and to kind of blame some, external force for their, shortcomings. So I don't know, I don't know how it is in England. But,
because A, a lot of people love a conspiracy. B, a lot of people love a bogeyman. Let's blame a bogeyman. So, and then, as you said, sometimes people just want to find an excuse to blame someone else other than their own failings and their own weaknesses. So, yeah, and I'm sure Russia is used in that vein. But then, if you look at Brexit, or if you look at the populist movement in Europe, there are people that say that Russia is behind that.
That's no doubt. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, now of course it's obvious that it's in Russia's clear interest for the EU to be weakened or for the EU to collapse. So therefore, you well might imagine that part of their foreign policy is to destabilize Europe, which is obviously why they pump billions of rubles into Russia Today, into RT, to sow anti-Western claptrap. But who knows how far that foreign policy goes? Is it just the propaganda channel of RT, or is it more meddling in our elections? And now, of course, some people are very quick to jump to allegations like that. Now, I'm a very strong Brexiteer. I think the EU is bad, but I also hate Russia. But at the end of the day, Russia might want the same outcome that I want. I want us to leave the EU. I wouldn't shed a tear if the EU collapsed. So I might share some aims with them, but that doesn't mean I'm with them or I'm in support of them. And it would be wrong if they were interfering in elections in British soil or anywhere else. That would be wrong.
What do you mean by interfering? By interfering, do you mean that they're changing election ballots, or because in the U.S. this has been a big controversy?
I guess they'd be using it by social media, by pumping out stories that are. Well, I think that would be one of the main ways in which they do it. By it's the typical Russian bot, isn't it? Pumping out stories that are encouraging of people to go down that route of belief.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Yeah. And again, because Russia is now reinvesting a lot in its military, but where it's investing much, much more is in the cyber world. Now, whether that's for commercial, to gain commercial secrets and benefits, etc., or it's in the political sphere.
It's the same way with North Koreans. They invest a lot in their cyber capability. Because that's
at the end of the day, they're all as bad as each other. They're all evil. None of them's really got the moral high ground as far as I'm concerned, whether it's the British, the Russians, the Americans. Their whole democratic system is corrupt. It's run for the benefit of the political class and the wealthy elite, and the rest of us do our best to survive within that system. They might be good at covering up their tracks like the Western governments are, and they're probably better at covering up their tracks than, say, North Korea, as was mentioned, or Russia. But you peel back the layers, you'll find there's a lot of corruption and a lot of basically aloofness amongst the political class towards the people. So they're all evil as far as I'm concerned. Their governmental system, they're all just devious, cunning.
I think that might be too simplistic, in saying that the system is, because what I believe is that people deserve the government they get, because there's a politician in India who said people deserve the leaders that they get because they are the ones who vote for them. And like, at least when he's talking about the Indian context, people are complaining about corruption and all that. But at the end of the day, they found that a lot of people were voting for people with criminal records. so he's like, you guys are complaining about your leaders, but at the end, you're the ones who actually put them there by voting them in.
Vote for them, or Manny didn't vote for them, but they end up in power. I didn't vote for them. So how is that? Why should I have to take the brunt of their corrupt crap? I didn't vote for them. That's how corrupt the system is. It's not proportional representation. It's this first past the post system, which can easily be rigged by using things like gerrymandering process. So it doesn't take into consideration or reflect what people actually want. It's a first past the post system, which is unfair. And people don't really get to the government that they want. I never voted for any of the governments that have been ruling this country. And I'm sure there are millions of people just like me, but according to them, the system is fair.
But I thought that the British system might be more fair than the US.
I just want to say thank you to Morton Hire for the donation. Morton Hire, thank you, much appreciated. Sorry, Raindrop, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I always thought the British system was maybe a little bit more better than the American system, because in America we just have two main political parties, and at the end of the day it just becomes like a WWE contest, in the sense that you have two wrestlers, both of them slap each other in the ring, they put on a good show, but at the end of the day they're pretty good friends with each other nonetheless. So it's in a sense that this is one of the reasons Trump got elected, in my view, was that he kind of represented someone who both the Democrats and the mainstream Republicans hated. And similar with Bernie Sanders, is someone who a lot of Democrats and Republicans hate on the left. So in the sense that I guess it was the establishment against maybe someone from the outside, which in itself can be a good or bad thing. It depends. If that goes in a positive or negative trajectory. But I thought in England, at least you have coalition governments. So for example, with Theresa May, you have the Northern Ireland constituency, which has a big influence over her, her government, because it's just because of the coalition.
Exactly, you're right.
Their voice heard.
You're absolutely right, but I didn't vote for that Northern Irish government. So why should I be held to whatever they push Theresa May to do? Here you have the Tories and the Labour Party. What happens if you don't support either one of them? You don't have much of a choice, do you? You're stuffed. So where are you going to do?
So with the British, I thought that you can vote for smaller parties, and those smaller parties can be kingmakers themselves, in the sense that, so in the US, if you vote for like the Green Party or something else, it's pretty much a wasted vote, because there's no way, even if they win a couple seats, it's not like they're going to be able to make a coalition. It's not the parliamentary system. Whereas in the UK, you have a parliamentary system.
An easy example of what I'm talking about. The last general election in my constituency, when I went to vote, and I went there and I looked at the ballot paper, all I saw for the most part were Tory MPs, Labour MPs, the odd Green Party person. They weren't even any independents. So who am I going to vote for? I voided my vote and I put it in the ballot and I walked out because I couldn't vote.
You can't write in candidates, like write your own candidate in?
But there wasn't any.
No. Is there like a blank? Because in the US, we have a space where there's like a blank line. You can write your own name.
You
can write your own name.
No, you can't.
You can't do that. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Because there's a senator in Alaska who actually won that way, because people just wrote her in, and she won plenty enough votes to win the election in Alaska.
What's your opinion on Julian Assange being kidnapped, arrested, Raindrop?
Yeah, I don't think that it's just gonna backfire on them, in the sense that it just makes him out to look more of a martyr figure. I think 7 years, bro, in one room is like extreme amount of punishment. Like, he's punishing himself. Like, if I were him, I would have just said, fuck it, arrest me already. I would have gone mad, like just staying in one room for 7 years. My God.
And do you agree with Steve that the fact that his him disclosing the documents in the way he did actually put service personnel in danger, and as a consequence, he should, and he continued to do that. So as a consequence, he should face justice. Do you agree with that concept?
So I'm not 100% sure, in the sense that I do agree that if what his action has done has put risk lives, especially of service personnel, military personnel, then that's something that we have to find out. Does the responsibility lay on him or on the Edward Snowden, or was it a foreign actor who actually fed that information in there? Because it could have been, maybe the Russians who got that information and they just, inserted that into all the other data. It's a hard thing, it's a hard thing to figure out. I don't think there's any simple answers. I'm not sure so I'm confused myself regarding as what to do. Just that my opinion was that him spending 7 years would be like a jail sentence in itself, and I think he should have just surrendered himself after 1 year and just gone through the justice system. And because in the U.S., because who's her name, Chelsea Manning, got off with the pardon. I don't think he would have gone to Supermax prison. They would have tried him, mostly tried to use him as an example for others to not do the same thing that he did. But I wouldn't think it would be worse than spending 7 years in a room by yourself, in an embassy.
I agree. But Steve seems to think that he has mental health issues such as narcissism.
But yeah, he does have some issues. I guess the difference here is on, do you consider WikiLeaks a journalistic website, or do you consider it as an intelligence asset? And so in the US, what they were saying here is that, look, if you prosecute WikiLeaks, then you can prosecute New York Times, or you can, because with the Pentagon Papers, I forgot which paper published it, but with the Pentagon Papers or Washington Post or any of these news agencies, if they, put scoop, if you prosecute Julian Assange, you can then prosecute any established news establishment you want. So I think this is the reason the Obama administration didn't really work to extradite him. So I guess it brings out a lot of messy things, as and I guess it has to go through the court system to figure out what precedents it might set.
Fair enough. So guys, if you guys want to bring up, Steve, did you want to bring up any other topics of conversation? I know that obviously you're very much in the political game. So if you have any hot topics to discuss, this would be a good time.
Oh, well, I suppose there's the whole Farage UKIP thing that you touched on earlier. And I'm not sure. I read that Farage's Brexit party are only standing in the European elections, i.e. they're not standing in the local elections and possibly not even standing in a general election if we have one. I don't know whether any of you have heard anything else on that.
I hadn't heard that, but that certainly makes sense because that was the strong point of UKIP when he was in charge. So he, he probably thinks that he's finishing the whole Brexit job off, i.e. to get Britain out of EU properly and so on and so forth. So I can believe that, but he never wanted to be a career politician, even though by him resigning last time, he was the one that caused all this controversy, don't you think?
Yes, he made it clear that was his only mission, and that when he thought he'd achieved that mission, he was out of politics because he had no desire to be a career politician. But it just makes me wonder why just putting candidates forward for the European election, how is that going to achieve that goal? Obviously, if he did win, and if he won, if his new party won a number of positions in the European Parliament, then yeah, they could make a lot of noise. But I'm not sure how that would actually specifically help Britain leave the EU.
You've had a question come in the chat, Steve. Can I ask you that question? It's from Tivertap.
Tivertap one.
Yeah. Do you want me to read it out?
No, I can see it. So can you ask me to say me accusing him of? Oh dear. Do the people really want to know?
Amy is claiming Tan and Steve worked with a third guy to arrange her being punched in the face. Take it away, Steve.
Oh, dearie me, dearie me. We shouldn't even be giving it any oxygen, really, because the woman's a complete nutter. She's a money-grabbing nutter, and she's just stirring this nonsense up for no more reason than to try and create a cause that some poor sod's going to think, oh, I'll give her £5, I'll give her £10 to help her with her cause. I honestly think that's all that it's about. So the person that she's on about, anyone that goes to Speaker's Corner knows this person. And if they go there regularly, they know what his name is. But I'm not going to say what his name is. But anyone that knows anything about Speaker's Corner and goes there a lot will fully well know him, which precisely tells anyone that Amy tries to claim credit for changing things at Speaker's Corner. Well, absolute nonsense. She's turned up, what, a tiny handful of times. She doesn't even know the regulars. She doesn't know who goes there. She doesn't know people's names. If she was, she'd know who this guy is. So this guy is another very, very regular at Speaker's Corner, very decent chap. And he happened to be passing through Soho the day that Tan was doing his little thing of praying to his can of tango in Berwick Street, in front of the Muslims doing their prayer, blocking Berwick Street on a Friday lunchtime. And Amy was knocked out by the guy, and that was awful. And the guy's was charged, and he's been convicted now of assault against Amy. So that's all been done and dealt with. But now, obviously, she's got nothing better to do than to pore over all these videos, and she's spotted this other regular from Speaker's Corner who knows Tan, because Tan was a regular from Speaker's Corner, as I'm a regular from Speaker's Corner, and we all know each other, and we all talk to each other from time to time. This guy was actually going over after Amy had been punched to check that Amy was okay, and he tapped Tan on the shoulder to make himself known, because he's a regular at Speaker's Corner, as is Tan. And when we bump into each other from time to time outside of Speaker's Corner, we say hi to each other. And that's all he was doing. And now Amy spotted this guy with me on one of the Yellow Vests Saturday afternoon, and she's putting 2 and 2 together and coming out with 365. Because she hasn't got anything better to do. And to show the nonsense of it, she months ago accused Tan of organising this assault on her, because apparently Tan said at some point, who let the dogs out, which apparently was evidence to Amy that the guy who punched her, who happened to have a dog on her lead, was all organised by Tan. The woman is a complete fruitcake. She puts complete and utter nonsense together, and I think she honestly believes this nonsense in her mind, because I genuinely think we should be worried about her mental health at the moment, quite frankly, because she's coming up with all this ridiculous nonsense, and there are some gullible idiots on the internet who are falling for it. Not many, but a few, and I think most of our fans are in the States, so they're not even living in the country. And they're falling for her nonsense. She just puts these things out that Steve and this other guy are somehow behind coordinating the assault on her. Well, if she thinks that, go to the bloody police and let them look into it and conclude what a load of complete and utter nonsense she is. But no, she doesn't go to the police and report this alleged connection. She just rants about it on her hours and hours worth of live streams and chats and storytelling on the internet, just to whip up a few idiots in America to give her a few dollars. That's all it's about. And quite frankly, anyone that gives it 1 second's worth of credence needs their head seeing to as well. So that's all it is. Any more questions?
So you definitely not dating her or anything, Steve?
Oh, well, apparently there's sexual tension between me and her. Apparently, that's what it's all about. You would have to be desperate, though, wouldn't
you? Well, no comment.
So that's the start and the end of it, quite frankly. A regular from Speaker's Corner was passing through Soho at the time, saw Amy had been attacked, went over to check that she was okay, put his hand on Tan's shoulder to acknowledge Tan, being another regular who knew each other. And it doesn't all fit together, because I made it very, very public at the time that I thought it was absolutely appalling that she would be punched. However mad she is, no one deserves to be punched. He was a great, fat, huge thing. She's a short, little, middle-aged woman. Certainly didn't deserve to be punched in the face and knocked out onto the ground. And he wasn't found. The guy that did it was not found and was not arrested or charged by the police for quite some time. I was involved in bloody hunting him down and putting posters. I actually produced a poster, and another regular from Speaker's Corner travelled around Soho putting these posters up. So if I'm someone that was actually coordinating this attack on Amy, what the hell was I bloody trying to track down the bloody guy that punched her for? And there's various other little snippets of bits like that that completely and utterly don't support the nonsense that she's dribbling out. Quite ridiculous. She's obviously, she's got far too much time on her hands. She's just sitting at home day after day, trying to earn her next tube train fare up to London. So she just puts these little. I only realised the other day when someone showed me a video of hers that she does bedtime stories for her fans every night, for her American fans.
Oh really? I didn't know. I don't watch her channel. I mean, I think I'm subscribed, but it doesn't pop up. I'm not. I haven't clicked on the notification bell.
Someone else has just asked another question.
Yeah, let me read it out because it's more fun then. Can you ask Steve if he thinks Tommy should run as an independent MEP, or should he be let in to UKIP and run for them, or neither? And
well,
just stick to. Sorry.
So firstly, my understanding of how the European elections work, because they do work on the basis of a proportional representation system, is that you vote for parties, and then parties put together lists, and if they get enough votes, the top person on their list gets in, and then if they get even more votes, the second person on their list gets in, and on it goes according to how many votes they get. So therefore, I don't know how the European elections would work for an independent. Now, I know we've currently got independent MEPs, but I believe they're all independent MEPs because they were part of a party that they've subsequently left for one reason or another. So Janice Atkinson is one of those. She was in UKIP. She was on the UKIP list. She won a place. She became an MEP, and then she left UKIP, but she continued as an MEP, as an independent. But I'm not aware of any independent MEPs that became MEPs when they were independent, and how that would work. Because presumably, if you're standing as one independent, you're going to have to get an awful lot of votes as one person to then win a seat. And the constituencies for the European elections are big. I think like London is one, East England is one, Southwest England is one. So they're massive, massive areas with huge number of constituents. So therefore, unless I've missed something there, I think if Tommy did stand as an independent, he would, and I assume it would probably be in East England because he'd probably want to stand in an area that covers Luton and Bedfordshire. But it would cover a much, much bigger area than that. He would have to get a ridiculously high number of votes to win. And I have to question whether he would. I suspect he wouldn't. So if what I'm just saying there is correct about the election process, I have to say I don't think he'd have a chance as an independent. Yeah, he's got a lot of fans and he's got a lot of appeal and a lot of people like him, but I'm not sure what the threshold, what the number of votes would be for him to win. So I suspect, he obviously he could use just standing as a opportunity for publicity, and I guess he might do it for that alone. But I don't think he'd have any realistic chance of winning as an independent MEP. And then I think when Gerard Batten was interviewed by Matt Fry on LBC last weekend, Gerard Batten seemed to make quite a strong point that Tommy is not going to be allowed to be a member of UKIP, and let alone stand in election. In fact, Gerard Batten specifically went out of his way to say that he will not be standing for UKIP in the European elections. So unless Gerard Batten changes his mind from last weekend, that's not going to happen either. So I don't think it's going to happen either way around. Someone has just said Tommy would win in Sunderland, but again, Sunderland is not a constituency. It would be northeast England, I would imagine. That would cover a much, much bigger area than Sunderland. So he might come top in a vote just within Sunderland, but that's not enough because the area is much, much bigger. So it would be Newcastle, Northumberland, all the surrounding rural areas. So just having a power base in the city, is it city of Sunderland or town of Sunderland, would not be
City.
would not be sufficient.
So I'm a little bit annoyed at Tommy personally. I mean, it's not a big thing, but at the last Brexit rally, he was intoxicated, and I kind of think that was very unprofessional of him, being on stage in that manner. Did you feel the same? I mean, what were your thoughts?
Can I ask you why did you think he was intoxicated? Not intoxicated. I'm not saying I won't agree with you, but I just wondered what your experience was.
His words were slurring. He came across as if he were. A number of people thought the same. He had a very dry mouth, and everybody else around him seemed to think that he may be intoxicated in the way they were, kind of getting in water and looking with stark eyes and what have you. I mean, it's not. Let me. Another thing that I want to make clear is that he hasn't done anything illegal. I mean, he's well within his own freedom rights. If he wants to have a few pints, that's absolutely fantastic. Everybody there, practically, I was the only one, and probably you, were probably the only ones that didn't have any alcohol. That were at the rally. But I just think that probably because we hold these speakers at these rallies at a very high level that we expect them not to be intoxicated.
I don't know whether he was drunk, but what I will say is I agree. I don't think that was a good day for him, and I don't know, but I would not be surprised if that day contributed to what Gerard stated in this LBC interview last weekend, because I sensed. I mean, basically, Matt Fry, all he wanted to talk about to Gerard was about Tommy Robinson, and clearly, understandably, Gerard was annoyed with that. I'm here to talk about the bigger issue of Europe and the EU and of Brexit, and as journalists always want to do, they just would go on and on about Tommy. But I felt that Gerard was less positive about Tommy during that interview than I've heard him be before. And yeah, as I say, I think I can understand why that might be the case, because I don't think that Friday, March the 29th was Tommy's best day, to be honest.
So Charmed is saying that Tommy did actually admit that he shouldn't have maybe have spoken that day. So he himself is possibly aware of that.
The other thing I'd call out about that day is that they kept the stage going. They kept the stage up and kept, people talking on it, or, they basically, the barriers seemed to come down, and then people were sort of entering all the area around the stage and, into the evening, into after the sun had gone down. And Tommy was still around, and I know Tommy walked up Whitehall and then came back down. That, quite frankly, was clearly a recipe for disaster. It'd been a good, reasonably good day, some good speeches, good spirit, no trouble. Well, pretty much no trouble. You just bring it to an end and close it. You don't keep it going into the evening when there are going to be more people getting drunker, and therefore there is potential for trouble. I've no idea why he kept it going. because that was just ridiculous and poor idea in my view.
So what do you think is what do you think Tommy Robinson should do? I mean, he obviously is trying to get into politics. What do you think?
Well, no, I mean, he always has said that he didn't want to get into politics and that he never had any ambition to get into politics. It's only been in recent weeks or months where he's started to express a view of that he contemplating doing that. But he previously he was always very adamant that politics wasn't a road he wanted to go down, and it was more, you know, journalism and producing films and exposing issues rather than going down a political road. So I think he was only kind of sort of dipping his toe into the water and sort of contemplating it as an option. But you know, I mean, presumably, if he did want to stand in the European elections, Gerard has said it's not going to be for UKIP, so it would have to be as an independent. I don't know what the timetable is for officially registering your name, but you can't have long to do it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think one of the things that Tommy needs to work on is finding more support from more of the middle class groups, because I think he has the support of the working class, which is fantastic. But I think you know, to certainly get into politics, and the next step up is to find more of a level ground with more of the middle class, and I think he hasn't perhaps done that as well as he could have done.
Yeah. So, you know, there are various other people who certainly are standing in the European elections for UKIP. So Zargon certainly is. I think Count Dankula is going to be in Scotland. Oh gosh, I forget his name. The Chinese guy who's often the film man at Tommy related events is standing for UKIP as well. So, you know, there certainly are a lot of people that have been connected to Tommy or have been sort of involved in the movement who are now standing for UKIP. Don't think Paul Joseph Watson is, because he was one of the things that they sort of trailblazed as the new joiners of UKIP. But I don't think Paul Joseph Watson ever liked showing his face in public, does he?
No, that's right. Yeah, he I would love to see him in politics. He's a great journalist, and he's a great commentator. And it's I think he just doesn't think that it is something that he wants to do, which it is a very, very big shame, because I think he would be perfect to bridge that gap between you know, Tommy supporters and the middle class, so to speak, because people forget that middle class come from the working class, and even though in good times the working class and the middle class are always kind of having a go at each other, but you know, generally when in these type of you know times, the middle class and the working class stand together, because everybody knows that you know, in times of tyranny, both of these groups get attacked by the establishment.
Yes.
And that's what I'm hoping that Tommy or anybody else working with Tommy, or even without Tommy, somebody is able to do that. And that's what Nigel Farage did manage to do. But the complete tulip threw it all away for God knows what reason, and created. I'm not saying he created the mess, because obviously Theresa May and the other corrupt MPs created the mess, but he has to take some responsibility. And I'm just glad at least he's trying to do something. But then I'm scared, like we just discussed before, that he might be just splitting the votes now, where he might be better used or utilized if he either joined UKIP, which he probably can't now, or For Britain. But again, even For Britain and UKIP need to join together.
Did you see someone's making comments in the chat, Manny, including that we're sellouts, for example, because we're daring to criticize Tommy, apparently? Did you see that comment?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're going to get those comments. I mean, you know, nobody can read. nobody can really question our pro-British and how we stand behind Tommy in all the fantastic things that he does do. So you know, at the same time, we need the freedom to criticise the likes of Tommy. So you know, it's so he can see what he's doing wrong as well.
This isn't about one person. This isn't about Tommy. It's about the cause. If yeah, as someone asked, just the cult of Tommy Robinson. There should never be hero worshipping one individual, however good and strong and great stuff one individual might have been done. And this links it back to the conversation about Assange. You know, whatever good things you think Assange has done doesn't mean he can't be criticised. Doesn't mean he can't do something wrong and therefore shouldn't be criticised for that. This is not a cult. No one is perfect. No one is perfect, and no one has the right never to be criticised either. Even if they've done a hell of a lot of good to the cause, doesn't mean they're right for everything. Doesn't mean they're always right. And you know, it's like the cult of Putinism. You mustn't criticize him. And well, that's
God,
bollocks.
you really have it in. You really have it in for Putin, don't you? But I just want to say, in regards to Tommy Robinson, what he's done for the country, what he's done for the communities, for the grooming girls and bringing it all into the media. No one's ever going to forget that. I mean, Tommy is categorically one of the most heroic people that this country has ever produced, and we all need to be proud of that. And that's why we all love Tommy. But again, you know, we criticize, so we all improve, and Tommy improves. And it's not really criticism. God, if you want to see criticism, you got to let you just give Steve 10 minutes, and when Steve starts criticizing, you know about it. We've been joined by Banksy. Good evening, Banksy. Welcome.
Hello, how's it going, guys? I hope you can hear me okay. I'm testing out a new microphone because my old microphone died. I don't know if it's an expensive one, so hopefully it's good.
So do you feel like a bit of a superstar now, being interviewed by the likes of Online White?
Hey, I interviewed Online White before Online White was Online White. Okay, so no, he should feel privileged to have me on that show. That's how I see this. I honored his channel by appearing on it. Now, Joe's a great guy. And I saw his potential. That's why I interviewed him when he was only like less than 1,000 subs. And now he's rocking at like 6,000, and I'm still hanging around 1,400. It's like someone telling me something. Anyway, but how is this Tommy Robinson thing? I'm actually more interested in the conversations around Tommy and Steve, you guys. I think the reason Nigel Farage started the Brexit Party isn't because he actually cares about being a political party. He just needs, I think I don't know, can you actually stand in the MEP in the European elections as an individual? Do you have to be part of a party?
Well, that's what I was just saying. I think you possibly can stand as an independent, but I think your chances of winning are tiny because they're big constituency. And therefore, to pass the threshold as an individual as opposed to a party, I think would be quite difficult.
Yeah, but the only reason a party matters is because the party will then afford you resources financially and other things and marketing and so on and so forth. Someone like Nigel Farage, he literally has an LBC show every night, I think it is now, pretty much. So he doesn't need a party to give him the finances and the platform to advertise himself effectively as a candidate. So why would he need a party? I mean, you could just simply stand. I don't know. I just think that there must be something in it for being a party. There must be other things attached to it, maybe to do with finance, maybe to do with other things. I'm sure there must be some legal wranglings, because starting a political party, from what I understand, because Sargon of Akkad tried to do it, the what was it called? The Liberalists Party. I don't know if you guys, you have to raise a minimum of like £50,000 to just get the thing off the ground, just to kick it off. So it's not an easy thing to do. And
I actually looked into it a few years ago and it was about 10, 15 years ago. I believe that the application fee was within £1,000. And there were small costs here and there, but at no way were the costs lining up to tens of thousands of pounds. But unless that £50,000 mark is, we're discussing, the launch and some advertising and a PR campaign. But
I
my
think,
calculations.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just wrapping up. I was saying for my calculations, it was just about £1,000 or so at the most to get things rolling.
I think to register is relatively sort of humble fees, but I think to get a political party off, like as in being recognized as a political party, that's with the resources. I guess you're right. It must be to do with pub advertising, marketing, etc., etc. The weird thing is, the social media sort of thing has changed some of that game, because someone like Sargon of a Cat has 900,000 subscribers. Now he has as big a platform, I would say, as any radio station, certainly a local radio station. So he certainly can have his voice heard. He certainly can be, he has a platform, and it didn't cost him hundreds of thousands of pounds to make. It's just I don't know. I just think there must be something else in it, because Nigel Farage wouldn't go down this road if it was just £1,000 to stand in as an MEP for the European elections. It just seems weird that he's gone. And the thing is, the other part of it is, it seems futile, because if you're a single issue political party, you don't get very far. The single issue political parties really don't have much of a longevity, because he's never going to be able to make any impact in government. So what's the point? There's so many unanswered questions as far as the Brexit Party is concerned. I just think this is a Nigel Farage vanity project, and he wants to get into the European Parliament again because, well, there's some sweet cash in there too. But not only that, he can just be an annoyance, and hopefully he will annoy the European Union enough to chuck us out.
He's already a very rich man. He must be a multi-millionaire, because he's an ex-commodities trader from the Commodities Exchange in London. And those guys in those days used to earn a fair packet, and he was very, very successful. And so I don't think money is going to be the only reason that what motivates him. But you never know.
Well, this is what I mean. I can't figure out the motivations or the drive for another. I mean, I know he wanted to quit UKIP because of the whole Tommy thing. He did not want to be associated with that. I can see that, because Nigel Farage wants to appeal to the middle class. He does not want to appeal to just the working class, although he tries to market himself as the working class guy, kind of guy. Constantly goes on about how MEPs are, they've never had a proper job in their life, even though quite a lot of them are actually in the same position as him. There were, people in the financial industry, the professors, all sorts of different types of people that are MEPs. I'm not trying to excuse like the European Parliament. I think they're just awful, but his niche is to try to get some of those rebel middle class type people in, because Tommy certainly isn't going to do that. I mean, I'm sorry, but Tommy Robinson is not going to win the middle class. His rhetoric, his antics are not going to win the middle class. He is just not going to appeal to the lawyers and the doctors and the GP type of people who are earning, I would say, 60, 80 to 100, 150 grand a year. That sort of, that category, the ones who have dinner parties, and you, Manny, who drink 25-year-old single malts.
That was a limited edition 50-year, I think.
50 years. There you go.
It was a limited edition, and even had my name on the bottle. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, you made some good points there, I suppose. So, but while we got you in here, did you Did you have any thoughts on what happened at the Ecuadorian embassy?
Oh, Assange.
Yes.
Well, from what I've been hearing, I mean, first of all, I think it was only a matter of time. I mean, there was only so long that he was going to be able to survive in there. I mean, it's ridiculous. 8 years of living in an embassy. That in itself is a prison sentence. But apparently, he became very belligerent. He became quite stir crazy. He may have actually lost his marbles a little bit in there, because from the reports or the things that I've heard is that he started like insulting the guards. He started being, somebody said, I heard a report about him rubbing feces on the walls, like crazy things. So I think he started to lose his marbles. He's just started to go stir crazy. I mean, let's be honest. You imagine you just take any part of your house and say that's the only part you can live in for the next 8 years. I don't know about you, but I think people are going to have issues. Just imagine, you can't leave your house for 8 years. The whole of your house, not even just one tiny segment of it. I'm sure that's going to psychologically affect you. And then they started cutting off his internet. Um, not, I don't know. He couldn't have any of his lawyers to even come and see him. So I think that ultimately, yeah, he lost his marbles. So the Ecuadorians got fed up. They probably, I mean, I'm sure the British and the Americans gave the Ecuadorian government some sweet deals. And now they're going to send him off to America on some trumped up charge. Pardon the pun with the trumped up charge. But Trump is definitely going to fuck him. Trump is not going to be his friend. Trump is going to screw him over. This guy is going to wish he was a jihadi at Guantanamo Bay. Because it seems that it is more of an egregious crime to tell the truth about the Western government's antics in the world than to actually want to blow up people and behead people in the Middle East. So yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's
maybe Trump will pardon him. I think that could be a reality.
Nah, not in a million years. Trump doesn't. That's something that's not in Trump's decision. It's not really Trump's decision. Trump may be the ones who might sign whatever papers that they put in front of him, but it's not. It's the security and the sort of the people who really run America. They're the ones who are pissed with Assange. Trump and presidents, they don't really run the countries. I don't believe for 1 second these people actually run the countries that you think they run. These are the front men. The work is done behind the scenes. So I don't think Assange has pissed off some very powerful people. He has exposed some very embarrassing things. And
are you also saying that the members of parliament in Britain don't really run the country, and that there are more hidden powers that actually control the UK? Bearing in mind that we have Steve on the panel, and he's going to be standing for election soon.
Well, I mean, Steve, you good luck with that. And I'm sure once you get into the halls of power, you realize what is really going on. I notice that people who come up with all these very sort of idealistic ideas about the parliaments and governments and democracy, once they get into those places of power, their attitudes change. They seem to realize, I don't know, something else happens. But I'm not gonna certainly deny the interest groups have tremendous power and influence. Oh, for crying out loud! This idiot on a motorbike outside. I apologize. But yeah, I just think that I don't believe that the people who actually run countries, the powerful, the money interests, the lobbyists, they're not just gonna let some wide-eyed idealists step in and take over and turn their apple carts over. The last time they did that, they crucified the man.
Steve, what do you think? Do you agree with Banksy's sentiment that no politician has much of a say in anything?
Well, you're
I'm
one
jaded.
voice amongst a crowd, aren't you? But it depends. I mean, if you're part of a party structure, so therefore you are a part of a collective within the system that you're in. So depends how strong and influential your voice is within that collective, doesn't it?
London UK has typed, and it's for your attention. It says, Steve Speaker's Corner. The IMF approved a fund to Ecuador for $4.2 billion. Just a coincidence? Question mark? Question mark.
What, in recent days?
London UK. When was that fund approved for Ecuador? If you know, could you type it in the chat? If you don't know, just say I don't know, and I'll look it up in the meantime.
And who paid that money?
Yeah, so the IMF.
The IMF approved, sorry, a loan, or I had to go shut the window because of the stupid motorcycle outside. But was it a loan or a just some sort of get well soon
essentially
fund?
A fund, basically a loan. Yeah, that's what it will be.
Thing is, we all love a damn good conspiracy, don't we? I mean, they might have got something that was 100 times bigger last year, for all we know.
Well, there is that, but I mean, if you follow this trail, you'll probably find somewhere down the line that loan, quote unquote, is forgiven by the IMF down the road. It's not really, because I mean that happens to Israel all the time. Israel, quote unquote, takes loans out from the United States, but a lot of them are actually forgiven. They're never paid back.
Agreed.
So
it's an old accounting trick of corruption.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, I'm inherently a skeptic. I always am questioning things. I mean, I don't believe Manny believes in vaccines being bad for your children. I absolutely don't. No, vaccine your children. Polio is freaking coming back. Are you insane? But there are some things I don't believe, and there are some things I do. But I certainly, when it comes to money and power, I can, very, very confidently tell you that there are plenty of interest groups who run things, and they have done for a long time. And politicians are spineless, greedy, self-serving individuals who, for the most part, go in there for their own pocket. And even if those few rare occasions you get a real honest politician who goes in there with sort of utopian ideas of how they're going to help their country, are soon either corrupted or scared into silence, scared into sitting in the shadows. They're not allowed to do anything, even if they are an odd idealist politician here and there. So Steve, I mean, you may be one of the good ones, but I'll be honest, you'll find yourself treading water for decades to come. I just see it that way.
So I'm just going to share this this window here. Bear with me while I enlarge it.
Is this have you gone into the International Monetary Fund page?
Yeah. So Ecuador IMF reached staff level agreement on 4.2 billion extended fund facility. What do they mean by extended fund facility? So that's February the 21st. Reached an agreement, set up policies. Okay.
But the International Monetary Fund put out the press release on it yesterday.
But this was agreed on mid-February 21st.
Right. Well, okay.
So if in the future, Steve, this loan is cancelled or written off, would you accept certain things that Banksy has stated?
Not in isolation. No, you'd have to understand the general picture of how these loans are treated, and however and what others have been written off, and for what reason are they written off. You can't just take one insular snippet of data and draw conclusions from it, can you? You have to see the full picture.
I agree. I actually do agree, but I think there is a full picture, and you can see it on a regular basis. You just have to look around various countries in order to see that. You just have to look at, again, so you can look at Israel, look at certain key South American countries, Middle East, plenty of them, African nations. Most of this so-called aid money is not really aid money. This money is to, grease the palms of the dictators and despots, just to keep them on side for a while, until they can either establish some sort of a Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein type of overthrow, or get them ousted in various other ways.
Do you really do you think that 4.2 billion US dollars was the most cost-effective way that the American authorities could get its hands on Assange?
I think that this was part of, I mean, it took 8
It's
years.
a very expensive way of doing it, isn't it?
Well, you'd be surprised what kind of money these governments. I mean, they spend trillions upon trillions on ridiculous things. So, in the long run, depending on how they can, if Assange's example Assange can be set as an example of silencing many others, or bringing these social media companies into line and getting a grip on the internet, then I think in the long term it could be money well spent, because the internet.
But as your namesake in the chat has just said, Wanksy style, the Ecuadorians were probably slung a whole load of money to take him in the first place 7 years ago.
I don't know. I mean, whatever the deal has been, maybe they were holding out for something else. Maybe there was other, there were different parliamentarians. I mean, because I think the president that was at the time when Assange went in, I'm not sure what has happened in Ecuador's politics since, but I don't think they've got the same president, do they? Or is it the same guy? Exactly. So politics changed within Ecuador itself. So all they had to do was hang around long enough to have a change of politics and change of politicians, that they could. It would be more, it was more malleable, more on side, or a more agreeable politicians to come into power in Ecuador in order to get this done. And again, these billions here and a billion there, you'd be surprised when it comes to the GDP of.
But the point is, this sort of activity wouldn't only happen at this point, at his release. It would equally have happened at the point that a South American state, heavily, as they are frequently heavily supported by Russia, would probably be encouraging Ecuador to give him protection from the outset. So it happens on all sides, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing with the situation with Snowden and him getting asylum in Russia was obviously no accident. Russia certainly, because Snowden was an embarrassment to the United States. Russia doesn't have to hurt the United States in any physical way, or in any sort of tangible way. All they have to do is just embarrass the United States and diminish their reputation around the world.
Yeah,
that's really. I mean, it's like there's a line in the film Iron Man 2, when Whiplash he beats up Iron Man with his new sort of whip technology, and then Iron Man says, you got yourself in prison. He says, well, the thing is, if you make a god bleed, then people lose faith, and then there's blood in the water, and the sharks will come. So when you make some superpower state like the United States embarrassed, and show them for the mistakes that they make, the crimes that they commit around the world, all the spying and all the torture and all the black ops and all that stuff, once you start to diminish America's great superpower status, then there's blood in the water, and the sharks will.
London, UK has just said that Ecuador gave Assange citizenship. Did they? I wasn't aware of that.
Ecuadorian citizenship.
I don't think they did. They gave him refuge in their embassy. I don't think they gave him citizenship.
Did they not also give him the status of an ambassador?
I don't know, but that's not necessarily citizenship.
Well, if they'd done that, then he would have diplomatic immunity. He wouldn't actually be able to be charged with anything.
But to be honest, even if they had given him citizenship, which I don't think they had, they're still within their rights to throw him out their embassy. That wouldn't be withdrawing his citizenship, simply throwing him out of a building.
But they have withdrawn his citizenship.
Also, they did actually give him citizenship and then withdrew it.
According to London, UK, they did.
Oh, I see. I
But
thought you were talking about like a source, an actual.
that's a separate matter to throwing him out the building. They could have still thrown him out the building.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure about the details. I mean, the stuff London UK is putting in, I have to go and verify that a lot of this is just hearsay at the moment for me anyway. So I can't stand by all those claims. I have no idea what
I do remember reading that that he had been given the same status as an ambassador, and that way they were trying to get him to walk out of the embassy and go to Ecuador and what have you. But I don't know. I think the UK refused to accept that, and I think that's what the issue was, and that's why he's continued staying in the embassy.
When someone's broken their bail conditions, what the hell does anyone expect? The police to let them get on the Piccadilly line to go to Heathrow, for Christ's sake?
Well, if he's got diplomatic immunity, they literally have to do that.
But those charges had been dropped, though.
If we covered this earlier, if you've broken bail conditions, you have committed offence.
Yeah,
you be convicted of alone.
Yeah, that's a different offence to the one he was originally charged with.
Whether Sweden dropped the charge or not, but that wasn't the only charge against him anyway, as we now know. It's all across the press, all the other charges against him.
Yeah, I see a lot of those as just bogus, but they were going to find something. I can guarantee you they'll find that he used the aerosol can not according to the instructions provided. So
I'm sorry, I don't know why all you guys have so much time for the likes of Assange, for the likes of Edward Snowden. These people are traitors.
No, I don't see those traitors. They're whistleblowers. They are whistleblowers. There's a difference between a traitor and a whistleblower. There have been plenty of whistleblowers in the history where these people have genuinely been patriots of their countries or various genuinely trying to expose things. I mean, there's a guy who wrote the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Nobody calls him a traitor. He exposed a lot of the things the American government is up to.
I'm surprised you have that opinion, Steve. I'm really surprised.
Look where these people run to. They run to Russia. They run to South American countries.
They don't have any choice. These countries are the ones who won't extradite them. What, do you think they're going to go to France? They're going to go to Spain? These countries will extradite them. They can't go to just about anywhere. They have to go to countries that will not extradite them to the United States or UK or wherever it is.
Yet they claim to be so damn principled about human rights, and they go to the countries that have got the worst human rights on this planet. That strikes me as hypocrisy.
Yeah, but then they're trying to correct the countries of their own, like Snowden's case. I mean, Assange is different because Assange is exposing, just about every country, European or Western country in the world. But he's Australian. He hasn't. I don't know what he's exposed about Australia, but his situation with WikiLeaks is a bit different to, for example, Snowden. Snowden was simply trying to live up to the ideals of the United States and let the people of the United States know what their government's up to, because that is how that country's supposed to be run, by the consent of the people, not by spying on the people and having secret, all sorts of spying programs from the NSA that is looking into your dick pics. So yes, Snowden was a whistleblower, and unfortunately, unlike Chelsea Manning, who didn't want to go to prison for decades. So he chose Russia instead. Actually, he didn't want Russia. Russia was an accidental place where he was stuck at. He actually wanted to be in South America, where he couldn't get extradited. But he never made it. He ended up in Russia, and he had to take that. So it is different, though. These guys have different motivations. I don't see Snowden as a traitor at all. I see Snowden as someone who believes in the constitution of his country. And he believes in the democratic and freedoms that country is supposed to provide its citizens. And when your country is spying on you, that's not bad. You're saying to me that if some German betrayed or went against Hitler and exposed the Nazi party's actions about what they were doing in Auschwitz and all that, then he's a traitor to Nazis. He's a traitor to Germany, but he's doing the right thing.
So now you're comparing Britain or America with Nazi
No,
Germany?
no, I'm just saying that I'm trying to give you the worst possible example of someone betraying their supposed country. If someone from Saudi Arabia exposed the debauchery and just the god awfulness of Saudi Arabia, I'd say good on them, well done. You guys are exposing, but we all kind of know how terrible those countries are. But the problem is the Western world sells us this concept of we're free, we are, we have our autonomy, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then we find that our governments are actually restricting our freedom of speech,
So,
that they're spying on us, and they're doing all sorts of things that they're not supposed to be doing. If we're living
so you and people in the chat are basically saying, well, where else can they run to because they wouldn't have safety and security? Well, the world is a very, very big place, and there are many, many countries, and they're not all in the back pocket of the United States of America.
But they have a very
that individuals choose specific countries that, quite frankly, are some of the absolutely worst offenders when it comes to human rights and when it comes to freedoms.
No, I 100% agree with you, but the problem is there is a very small number of countries in the world that actually will not extradite you to the United States or to European nations. He couldn't go to New Zealand, he couldn't go to Australia, he couldn't go to Japan, South Korea. He has to go to places that won't extradite, and most countries who won't extradite you to the Western nations are not very good countries because they're against Western nations. They're usually either dictatorships or despots. But unfortunately, apart from maybe Brazil, I think it's maybe, I don't know if Argentina has same sort of policies as Brazil. Brazil's like one of the few decent democratic type countries that won't extradite you to the United States. But the pool of countries that actually won't extradite you is quite small. That's the problem. You have a very small pool of nations, and in the case of Snowden, he got stuck. His aim, his end goal wasn't Russia. He's just trapped in Russia. He's as trapped in Russia as Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy.
How is Snowden trapped in Russia?
Well, if he tries to get on a plane to go to South America, America will land that plane, force land that plane in a jurisdiction.
How would America know he's getting on a plane in Moscow or in St. Petersburg?
Look, haven't you seen the footage, the actual documentary they made about catching Snowden? You should really watch that. He was supposed to go, or at least his aim was to go to oh man, where was it? It wasn't Ecuador. It was another South American country. I forgot which particular one it was. I have to go and watch that and give you the exact.
But that was right from the outset, though, wasn't it? Right from the big
from China when he first exposed everything, and he was due to fly from China to this other South American country. Now I forgot exactly the country's name, but what happened was he then got stuck in Russia because the thing is, the Americans never canceled his passport, so the Chinese just simply waved him through because his passport was a valid American passport. And the plane was supposed to go to Japan, to Russia. Then he was supposed to change his plane from Russia to the South American nation that he was going to land in. And by that time, during that flight, the Americans realized, oh Christ, his passport is still valid, so they canceled his passport. So then when he got to Russia, his passport was no longer valid and he couldn't get on the other plane. But what happened was, whilst he was in the airport, first of all, it was Julian Assange that actually sent people to Russia. I think I actually sent it to China as well. This lady to help Snowden, to actually give him resources, give him financial and legal advice to get him out of China. And as I say, he ended up in Russia. Then this lady stayed with him in the room that they had him in Russia. And I forgot, several days or whatever went by. The president of this South American country, which at the moment I can't remember the name of, flew to Russia. And he had some sort of meeting at Russia, but they somehow managed to convince the Americans that Snowden was going to get on the plane of this president and have and this president, he's going to fly back to this South American country with the president of that nation. The plane took off. The Americans, because this plane had to fly over a French airspace, the Americans forced the French to force the plane to land in France. Then they searched the presidential plane of that nation in order to see if they can find Snowden. And Snowden wasn't on it, but it embarrassed the Americans quite a lot but it also exposed how much power and influence America can wield when they want to. They can force a presidential plane of another nation to land in another country so that they can force that nation to have the plane handed over for inspection. This is the kind of power America can wield. And you're telling me, oh, why did he go to a despot country? America has tremendous amount of power. They can force your plane to be landed in a country where they can then extradite you from. So how do you expect Snowden to get to South America? Teleport? You know, that's what I mean. This isn't as simple as you think. You should really, there's a I don't know if that documentary is still available. I've actually downloaded it. It's on the Anonymous. Do you know Anonymous? Do you know the group Anonymous?
Yeah.
It's on their YouTube channel. It's called Catching Snowden. Look for that documentary. You will see why Edward Snowden ended up in Russia and why and how America tried so badly to actually catch him or get him out of Russia, even to the extent of force landing a presidential plane. Imagine if they'd done that to a Trump plane, to the Air Force One. Imagine if another country, if Russia forces Air Force One to land in, I don't know, Hungary, and then have that plane searched. America would literally go to war with that nation and nuke them if you force Air Force One to be landed somewhere they don't want to be land. It sounds absurd, but America can do that. America can wield that kind of power. And so, you know, we seem to forget that America has tremendous power and influence around the world. And not all of it is always used for good. Unfortunately, look, I love the West. I love Western civilization. I love everything about what they've contributed to the world and the lifestyle that they've offered so many people. But they're not always good. They've done shitty things in their past to get where they are. They've had to do things that, you know, a lot of us pretend or wish that they'll pretend that we don't see or we don't hear or we don't know. I'm just realistic. I go into this life with my eyes wide open. The last thing I want is someone to piss on my head and tell me it's raining and I pretend that it's rain. I want to know it's piss. Okay, that's all I want. Is if you're gonna piss on my head, at least call it what it is, and don't treat me like an idiot. I know you're doing bad things, but don't think I'm stupid enough not to to pretend that you're good as gold, that you're just going around the world hugging and kissing everyone else. You're not. You do. We have to. Everybody has to. Me and my brother, we always say, if the Iranians, what the United States and America did in Iran back in the 50s with Mohammad Mossadegh and the military coup and all, with the coup, if the Iranians had the same power and influence, will they be more benevolent to the Americans and the Brits? Will the Arabs be any more benevolent to the Western world? Will the Chinese be more benevolent to the rest of the world? No, they wouldn't. No, they would not. They would be 100 times worse. And they have been 100 times worse. We had the Arab Caliphate in our history. We know what they're like. We've had the Chinese rule other nations. Go and look at Tibet. So yes, these people are not any more benevolent than the Americans and the Brits. So given the choice, if I have to choose a dictator or a ruler of this world, then at the moment I'm throwing my, what's it called? I'm throwing myself in with the Westerns, because given all their faults, they're still better than the alternative. But I mean, I'm just I'm just realistic. That's all I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be a person who looks at the world, accepts it for what it is, and also human beings. It's really what it really comes down to is human beings. We're just god awful creatures.
And do you both believe that there is a genuine concern for the process, what many people are calling the Islamicization of of the West? Do you think that's genuine, and do you think something should be put in place? What are your views on that, guys?
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I've been talking way too much.
It's going on, clearly. Evidence of it all around. Now, I suppose the one question is it to what extent, or to what extent is it a coordinated plan, a directed and coordinated plan? And firstly, and then secondly, to what extent are we complicit or involved in that coordinated plan? I'd say are the two questions. And I'd say, and I suppose if you say, well, what are my answers to those two questions? I think I would go as far as to say it is a coordinated plan from that sector. But in terms of the answer to the question of are we complicit in that plan? Are we involved in that plan? Are we naively giving in to that plan? Or do we think that plan serves other motives of our own? Or we just weak and feeble and amateurish and incapable of putting up any opposition to that plan? I wonder whether it's the latter in terms of that second question, that we're just too ineffective and too incompetent and too worried about political correctness or social Marxism or whatever phrase you want to use to actually put up any resistance to it. So we literally just fall over and let it roll over us because we don't have a backbone to stand up against it.
Well, my 2 cents on this is simply this. I see Islam as something like a force of nature. It is what it is, and it does what it does. It doesn't do anything different. Islam is an all-encompassing, dominating theology, and it will simply do what it does wherever it goes. Wherever it's allowed to flourish, it will take over. Because it is within its nature of the religion itself, and the practitioners of this religion who believe it will simply do what it does on the tin. So I don't see that there is this, like, from the Islamic world, I don't see there's these bunch of jihadis rubbing their hands together in dark corners going, "Wah, we shall take over the world." They don't even have to. The doctrine itself will do it. It is in the doctrine to dominate and take over. It's built into the system. So all they have to do is be Muslim and follow Islam. That's all they have to do. They don't have to do anything else. But what I am, disheartened and upset about is that in our great strive to be ever more inclusive and to be ever more liberal and progressive, it is now hurting us. Progressiveness in the face of an extremely parasitic and dominating ideology will ultimately destroy you, because they will not afford you what you afford them. Once they have their numbers, they won't afford you the liberal ideas that you afford them. They will clamp you down. But you're at odds if you don't allow people to have their freedoms with your own philosophy. So your own philosophy will choke you to death, effectively. That is how I see the West at the moment. Is our own liberal ideas and philosophy will be our own, noose around our own neck. And I think you have to break it. I think you have to put a line in the sand and say, this is as liberal as we're going to get. From this point onwards, we're no longer liberal. We're going to become real authoritative at that. But what normally seems to happen is actually the revolutions start to happen. Violence begins. If you don't allow people to change other people's minds with words, they will try to do it with their fist. And unfortunately, that's what I see. in the West is that they are clamping down heavily on speech. Christ, there's an equivalent of digital book burning now. They are taking people's books off digital shelves. If you look at it, Tommy Robinson has been banned from Amazon. That's digital book burning. That's what that is. Nobody wants to say anything. Nobody seems to point it out because there's not a massive pile of books on fire outside. But taking your books effectively off Amazon is digital book burning. And nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to mind. In fact, some people cheer it on.
I just want to add in, when you study history and you see how empires fall and how empires are built, we need to remember that great countries and great empires are built when people are hungry and they're striving to have a good life, to provide for their loved ones and to move forward. And what happens after a certain number of generations where everything has been good, where children are born in good, wealthy families, then that kind of breeds complacency. It breeds a type of liberal jellyfish type of personality where everyone's a bit too laid back. Everything's being put on a plate, and everyone has forgotten what it, or certainly large groups of people have forgotten what it's like to build something, to create something, to work hard, to work 12 hours hard graft. I'm really talking about, if we look at the benefits that we give and how easy it is to not to work a lot of the time, and so on and so forth. And I think that's what's happening to the West, where the West have had years and years of being the leaders of the world, but unfortunately they haven't kept up with their own principles, and as a consequence the new liberal jellyfish generation is they don't know how to create. They weren't the ones that built the West. They weren't the ones that had to work hard and save and provide, and as a consequence they're happy to just throw it all away, and they think that playing rainbows and butterflies and everything's could be a world where everyone's riding unicorns is achievable, and it's not achievable. We first have to look after our own house, and then once that's in order we can go out and help the world. It doesn't mean that you bring everybody into your own house and your own house will be able to provide for everybody. So I think that's what the issue is. I think it's a collection of corrupt politicians selling our country, selling out the people, and then on top of that, a certain percentage of the population that are just idiots, and they don't know what they've got, and they're just unappreciative, and the West is in trouble, and it's kind of breaks my heart to see the country that I was raised in coming to this.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's I forgot who it was. Someone online who said I was looking at a podcast or something, and said, in all honesty, what we need is another war. We just need another great war, just to make bring people into check, to realize what world that they're living in, and as horrific as that is, I don't necessarily say war. We've had plenty of little wars in the last 20 years. It's really something to show people that anything worth having is you have to work hard for it, to give people the appreciation for what hard work does for you. Not just the fact that you build something, you create something, you make something, but the character that it generates within you, the personality that it comes out of that hard work, because you are never the same again once you've gone through a certain level of hard grafting traumatic events. If you do that, if you achieve something at the end of it, you are never the same again, and it changes you. It builds character. I did a whole video on why struggle and hard work is absolutely, it's not only that it's good for you, it is necessary for you as a human being. You have to recognize, you have to put yourself, if your world doesn't provide you with hardship, put yourself in hardship. put yourself in a position where you have to struggle. That's why rich people go up and climb Mount Everest, because they don't have any other hardship in their life. So they put themselves in a very demanding environment just so that they feel. I mean, there's a saying in this film, Deep Blue Sea. It says, they asked this man, why did you go up that mountain to die? He said, I didn't go up that mountain to die. I went up that mountain to live. That's what it does for you. You know, don't bully children. Oh, stop bullying kids. It's terrible. We have zero tolerance on bullying. No, fuck that. Bully children. I say bully. Some children need a little bit of fucking hard graft. You think there'll be a Microsoft if there were no bullies? You know how many times Bill Gates had to be shoved in his locker with his underwear wedged up his asshole till he decided, fuck this, I'm gonna make computers and take over the world, become the richest man in the world, and then I'll bully all of you. No, but there must have been, you know, there is some level of hardship, some struggle, something. You know, people. I notice this in bodybuilders, in martial artists. They are extremely humble and well character. You know, they have tremendous character about them. They have tremendous will and confidence within them. The internal confidence, because no martial artist and no bodybuilder got to where they were easy. None of them ever did. There's no way. It's an impossibility to, if you become a great martial artist or a great boxer or kickboxer because on an easy route, you wouldn't make it. You just wouldn't make it. You'd be too soft. You just simply will not survive in that world. And the same with bodybuilding. Your body will not develop unless you go through pain and suffering. Nothing is easy in these world, and I think this is the thing. This is what nowadays we're telling people that it's okay to be obese. We're not even encouraging them to just live a healthy life, let alone bodybuilding. It's cruel if we just ask someone that's fat just to go take a walk. I commend Zubida for challenging me to lose a bit of weight. She insulted me, but that's fine. Thank you. I say thank you, because that got that set a fire in my ass. I started to go to the gym. I started watching my diet, and I'm now walking in trousers that I couldn't wear last year. Literally.
Hey, well done.
But what I mean is, that was the first thing I noticed. I'm wearing coats and shirts and trousers that I abandoned wearing last year because I became complacent, because I was just lazy. I lost focus.
You are now a male thought.
I am a thought. Absolutely.
Male what?
Thought.
It's an acronym, THOT. It stands for that hoe over there. It's a long story, Steve.
I only just learned about this the other day when Banksy said it to someone, Steve. So I'm in the same position as you. Like, what?
Yeah, there's a whole thing. But no, I mean, I'm not even close to the weight loss goal that I want. But what I'm saying is, I gave myself some hardship. I gave myself some sort of a target. I did something minor. This is a tiny little thing. This is a drop in the ocean of my life and in most people's lives, but it is something. And if you do it, you feel that you achieved something. Don't wait for your parents to do everything for you. You see that news article about these rich parents who are trying to fake it to get their kids in Harvard and Yale and all these things. Have you guys seen those articles?
Yes.
Yeah. This is what parents are doing. They're faking their children's achievements to get them in like top universities. And do you think that kid's going to be better off because of that? That you are literally doing a disservice to that child. That to me is child abuse. To fake your child's achievements to try to get them in places where they never earned it.
I don't think you could label it as child abuse. I mean, no. it's just a very overactive parent. I mean, I can understand why parents do that, because they want the best for the child.
No, but I honestly think it should be classed as child abuse, because you are hurting your child in their future, because you will never allow your child to recognize that they have to earn things. You are never teaching your child. You're literally failing in your responsibilities as a parent to give your child some level of hardship. Your children have to feel some level of pain and suffering, especially through their teenage years, through to adulthood, because the world is a cruel and unforgiving place. The world isn't going to fake anything for you. Your boss at work isn't going to forgive you for falling behind with your whatever work it is you're doing. If you don't have that memo or that report on his desk at the time he tells you, he's not. You can go to your mom and dad. They ain't going to do shit for you then. You still
Let's
gonna get your ass handed to you.
let's get Steve to comment on his view here, because obviously he's a father, and he can tell us what he thinks on our stance on this.
I don't know. What do you want to know? Ask me a specific question.
Okay.
Do you agree that a child needs to face hardship, so when that child becomes an adult, they have a few hairs on their chest?
Yes, yes. I think wrapping children up in cotton wool is bad and wrong. Completely. We are breeding and bringing up a generation of, well, snowflakes, aren't they? People that are so delicate and so vulnerable to people even telling them that they're wrong or that they disagree with them, that they just can't handle it. It's a petrifying future. What the children that we're raising. I hope we turn a corner on it and can start rearing proper human beings that can take the rough and the smooth and can take hard times as well as good times, and know that they can't get the latest phone the second that they want it, or whatever it is, whatever sort of genre or whatever area of life it is, that they can't just get what they want, and that they're going to be bad times, there's going to be hard times.
That people are going to say no to them. People are going to reject them. People are going to look at them in the eye and say, you're useless. You're not worth it. You can't do this. You're not able to do this. And for them to have that, strength of character to say, no,
Yeah.
fuck you, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make my world and forge it the way I want it to be, rather than waiting for mummy and daddy to deliver this life.
Exactly. They sit in their little protected bubbles at home. Even as they go through their teenage years and their upper teenage years, they're not going out getting drunk and vomiting down the street corner on their way home like we used to. They're just sitting in their central heated little houses, playing on their posh little gadgets and phones and devices, telling each other how beautiful they are.
Yes. I mean, there's actually beyond it to send them to Spartan training camp. Actually, there is a Spartan race that you can do, like a Tough Mudder, and I've done it, and it's awesome. And yes, you should do that. I mean, I'm not. It all depends. It's all different phases of a different child's life. You've got childhood. You've got adolescence. You got the years of puberty, and then you've got young adults. And in every phase, they should be challenged to do something that they can achieve within. It is within their grasp to achieve it, but they have to struggle and work for it. It's not easy. This is the thing. You don't give them impossible tasks. I'm not going to tell a 10-year-old to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but you should give them challenging things to do, so that they feel that sense of achievement, that sense of winning. Sports is brilliant because of that. Nowadays we have sports that the football matches, they don't keep scores. The sports days where everybody wins a fucking trophy. No, you don't. And not everybody wins a fucking trophy. Only a few elites win the trophy. And if you don't get one, it's because this year you were not good enough. So you better make sure, damn sure, next year, if you want one, to be good enough. So then you work harder next year. You do better next year. And if you lose this football game, you lost this football game. So you practice harder for the next one. So you make sure you win the next one. Not that we don't keep scores. Bullshit to that. This is ridiculous stuff.
Agreed. Gentlemen, I'm going to be closing the show at 1:15 in about 5 minutes. So any topic, any direction you guys want to take the conversation, then you are free to do so.
I'd say, and this is based on a couple of comments that I've just read about me in the chat, that snobbery works both ways. people love to define me as middle class, and therefore, what does he know about life of rough knocks? What absolute generalizing, ignorant, absolute nonsense that anyone knows anything about my life or anyone else's life. And I think people are so quick to judge one another, whether it's, oh, his accent sounds a bit posher than mine, or, he's white, so he's white and he comes from the South Coast, he comes from Hampshire, so therefore he must be, he must have had a privileged life. What absolute and utter nonsense. I think that the snobbery of this country, and this is probably another subject for another night, but, it cuts all directions. It's not just snobbery, going down, snobbery of the middle or the upper classes against the working class. It absolutely goes in the opposite direction as well. So people think, oh, someone who's white, who's from outside of London, who went to university, who now might have a decent job, somehow doesn't understand what tough life is. Absolute crap. Utter crap.
Yes. Well, look, it's easy to fix that, Steve. Just learn the words, things like fam, in it, use in it a lot. What else is there?
Because I know how to talk properly, and I managed to get myself a decent education, somehow means that I've not had a tough life, or I can't appreciate things in life.
Well, that's how it is, Steve. Unfortunately, if you say overstand instead of I understand, which is something I've been hearing recently on Raspek's channel quite a lot, they say overstand. I overstand this. What the fuck is that? Is that even English? If, like, for example, if you now, Steve, when I say to you, allow it, what does that mean to you?
Allow it.
Yes,
You're
allow
saying, well, permit it to happen. Allow it to happen.
That's your upper class, middle class, posh twatness. You see, the correct answer is let it go. Apparently, it's the new English that we're fucking learning. Is when you say allow it, fam, it means let it go, let it be. Do not, don't, it's enough. That's basically, they have totally changed fucking English. This is not English anymore, which these people are speaking.
No, completely. And speaking proper English has got nothing to do with class either.
Exactly. Or if I tell you, Steve, shook, do you feel shook? What does that mean to you, Steve?
Does it mean, do you feel shaken? Do you feel offended?
That's what it used to be back in the day, where you used to feel shaken or disturbed in some form or fashion. Nowadays, apparently, it means if you're scared of that person. I had to learn.
What does fam mean? Is that shortened for family?
I'm gonna go with that. I'm not clear. I have to consult my lingo dictionary.
And what I don't understand is a lot of these guys, they're cursing each other, and then they're also calling each other bruv. So they were saying, "Go f your mother, bruv," and then I'm gonna whack you, bruv. You know what I mean, bruv? And I was like, "Wait, hold a minute. You're just cursing his whole family out, but he's still your brother."
Where did people are going to love this? But where did the sucking of mothers come from?
Yes, you suck your mother. Suck your mother. Now, I don't know exactly, because I am not that deep in the world of the galdom and the mandom. I don't know about this shit. I'm literally picking it up as I go along. But back from my era of internet chats, there was the Muslims used to say, you mother sucker instead of you motherfucker, because they don't want to say, the F word. Yeah. So it was always the F word was always replaced with suck or sucker. And I presume suck your mother is really a derivative of fuck your mother.
Derivative.
I guess. I don't know. This fucking Neanderthal language that they're inventing. I'm picking it up as I go along. I still like to think I speak proper English sometimes. So I'm just picking this. I'm just a tourist here.
I've actually spoken to a friend of mine who's a psychologist, and got her explanation to why this happens. I'm not going to say it because it's quite a derogatory thing to say, but next time I see you guys, I'll share that information with you. Is how this came about, because it's understandable. Apparently, it's understandable when they're teenagers and young, and they're carrying this forward, especially if they have some kind of hero like a musician or actor or something that speaks in that particular fashion. But when you go into, deep adulthood, when you become a man and they carry on this, then that's an indication of something completely different. But I'll share it with you when I see you guys face to face.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you. So you're not having a Raj show tonight, Manny?
Raj is busy drawing. He's got some artwork to finish by tomorrow, I think, because he's doing an exhibition on Sunday. So yeah, it's not going into the Raj. So I'm just kind of just going to shut it down, and I might go on to Discord a bit later. I don't know, but I'm
Can we
definitely
talk
not
about
going to.
one more thing then, or do you want to go?
Of course, you go ahead, Steve.
Because he's been mentioned a few times in the chat, the subject of Adnan Radshid. We just dwell on that for a moment.
Yes. Go ahead.
Adnan Rashid. I just realized what you're talking about. I was about to Google it.
I don't. Yeah, if you put that into Google, will it bring anything up?
Adnan Rashid.
Well, because I didn't used to call him that. I used to call him his proper name, but I'm sorry. Now he is full of rad shit. Because it's absolutely hilarious, and I so want to see what the Muslims' reaction is going to be to this. Because when the video was put up online and then reposted, and I reposted it at some point, of the now in jail terrorist recruiter Faisal, Sheikh Faisal, with Adnan's voice in the background, actively supporting this absolute abhorrent, vile individual, there was an absolute outcry and nonsense from Adnan and all of his little sad fans that it wasn't Adnan and this was a fraudulent video, and it had been, it wasn't his voice and it had been cobbled together. Surprise, surprise, what eventually came to light, but another video that actually showed Adnan in the same bloody room, clearing the chairs up at the end of this speech.
Where is that video? Where is that video?
I tweeted it. I'll have to dig it out, and I'm going to retweet it again because I thought, they'd spent weeks and weeks, including at Speaker's Corner, going on and on and on about how it was a pile of nonsense and it wasn't Adnan, and this was all the haters and the Islamophobes trying to gang up against poor little innocent Adnan. And surprise, surprise, another video comes out, and there he is.
Could you WhatsApp it to me, please, when you retweet it?
Yes, I will do. I will do.
And tell it, I always knew it was him. I just I continue to believe it's him. I haven't seen the video, so I can't say I knew it was him.
It was bleeding obvious to any unbiased person.
To me, it is, but we're going to give. I've been giving him the opportunity to come out, and he hasn't. But what was more surprising to me, that even though everybody believed the same thing, that nobody called him up on it, and he is seen as a leader of all the Dawa peeps. At Speaker's Corner. So they themselves are complicit, but more importantly, it shows all those hardcore critics of Islam when they said that this is all a sham, that this dawah process is whatever they used to say, has actually now come to light that they may be true, because they see, the dawah people see Adnan Rashid as some kind of leader, and if the leader is doing this, God knows what else is going on behind the scenes.
Precisely. The veil is starting to fall. That's probably a good word to use. And the other nonsense thing, because when initially he was denying it, I mean, his denials were the most farcical thing anywhere, because literally he was saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. Well, if it was me, I can't remember it.
Yeah.
Choose your excuse rather than just say. And I fail to believe that he could possibly forget so publicly and actively calling for support for this individual. And he tried to make out that, I might not have known that he was evil and a terrorist supporter and a blah blah blah. Already years before when that video was made, the guy had been banned from mosques in Britain. The guy had already been charged with vile charges of race hate and asking for Jews to be murdered and really, really vile stuff. So to say that, you know, you're going to put yourself forward and support this guy, but not know anything about his background is clear and utter nonsense. His speech, this guy's speeches were full of vile, hateful, racist hate and encouraging of violence, and had done for decades. So for Adnan to say, "Oh well, I might not have realised what a horrible person he was," complete and utter nonsense. And then to say, "Oh well, I might have forgotten about it," again, complete and utter nonsense. And now the video came to light where it clearly was him. So as you say, yeah, he is one of the so-called leading lights of the Dawa teams at Speaker's Corner. We now see them all for what they are, and they were all actively supporting him. Even Paul Williams, who's been sort of hung out to dry by the Dawa teams, was still battling, giving Adnan support. And you think, why? Why would you do that when it is so obvious that A, it's him, and he was supporting such a vile, disgusting person who's now wallowing in jail for being one of the key recruiters of terrorists around the world. And surprise,
And,
surprise, the network goes back to Speaker's Corner, which is the point I've been making for donkey's years. Some of these people that go to Speaker's Corner, who are the well-known adherents of Islam and the Dawa teams, they are involved in very, very dodgy networks. I mean, look at Mohammed Hijab currently doing a tour of California. So some no-mark ex-teacher who lost his job for getting into a fight or nearly getting into a fight in Whitehall is now suddenly on a funded tour around the world. You know, these people have money behind them.
Oh yes, sweet, sweet oil money. One thing I want to just simply say before we veer off this subject, when I typed in Google Images Adnan Ratshit, now I don't know why, but I have a whole host of Speaker's Corner videos of the pictures, but most of them are Raj and Britney Spears. I don't know why. But there's a combination of Britney Spears and Raj pictures. And a couple of Raven. So there you go. That's what you get. I posted it in the link in the chat. Enjoy.
Banksy, Steve, thank you so much for coming on and keeping everyone entertained. It's been lovely talking to you. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you, mate. It was awesome. Thank you, Steve. And by the way, Steve, I did see you that night on the Brexit Betrayal. Unfortunately, you were walking opposite direction in a distance from us.
Yeah, I was probably making my way home when I
yeah.
I saw your live stream later.
Oh, you did. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Interesting evening. Let's. I think if we guys can arrange a night, we could all meet in central London. I'm down for that.
Do sometime. Yes.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
All right then.
Okay, gents. Have a good weekend. Oh, Steve, please remember to send me that link when you find it.
Yeah, I will do. I'm going to look for it now.
Okay, smashing. Thank you. Thank you, all the moderators. Thank you, everybody joining, listening, watching, and everyone in the chat. Everybody have a good weekend. Goodbye.
Okay. Take care, guys. Have yourself a lovely evening.